Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Present.
Trustee Caprio?
Present.
Trustee Rogers?
Present.
Trustee Sweet?
Present.
Trustee Knight-Turkey?
Present.
Trustee Barry?
Present.
Mayor Eaton.
Present. Are there any amendments to the agenda? First one we have is recognition for the Homer Junior High wrestling team. We want to congratulate the Homer Junior High School Mustang Wrestling Team on winning the state title in the Illinois Elementary Association's Youth Wrestling Competition. This is the second straight year for winning the state championship. So first I would like to recognize Coach David Rush for leading the team through another winning season and into the state championship event. Yes, we're gonna go there. Coach Rush. Okay. Now we recognize the entire team for their outstanding performance. The coach will read the wrestlers' names, and we have certificates for each team member. After receiving your certificate, please line up along the sides so we can do a group photo. I ask the audience to hold their chairs and applause until the team members are up here. Let me put this down for a second. Okay. Should we do the coaches first, or do you want to do the... Okay. All right, well, let me read them off and then you can take them. First one we have is for Coach Paul Oster. That's fine that you clap, but we're going to be here for a half hour and 45. Second would be Coach Sam Fuentes. Third would be Coach Jared McCarthy. Fourth, Coach Dimitri Smith. Coach Anthony Stores. Did I get that right? Good. Okay, now we're coming up for the wrestlers. So if the boys want to come up here. Okay, Aiden Nolte. If I destroy your name, please tell me. I'll only do it once. Ben Markham. Well, still announce his name. Charlie Spatz, not here to get the certificate. Chris Miller. Christos Alexandros. Good boy. You'll have to protect a lot of little guys. Jay Owawi. Did I screw it up? Chad? Sorry. Leo Menesara. Matt Giorgetti. Max Timizovich. Not here. Okay. Oh, the rest won't. All right. Peyton Robertson. Rocco Ragoni. Jimmy O'Connor. That's the group. If everyone could recognize them now. There were more coaches hidden. Coach David Rush. So, okay. All right, so this is a 2019 Outstanding Achievement. The Village of Homer Glen hereby recognizes our Homer Junior High Team State Youth Wrestling Champions, Mustangs, whose achievement has added to the community pride in our village. So thank you, boys. It's very impressive what you did. And coaches.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll do one more round of applause for him. 7th grade, this is tall as me. Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 12th, 2018 Village Board meeting?
So moved.
I'll second.
Trustee Gray, Trustee Suisse, discussion?
Oh, yes, I gave you all a revised sheet. Keith Gray emailed me with a change, and I just replaced Petrocas with Osinski to clarify.
You replaced what?
Petrocas with Osinski.
There was
He
a,
handed in the trailers, the trailer waivers.
right, there was a portion in the second paragraph on the page that the clerk gave us, the revised page, and originally it said that Mr. Petrakos had turned over the original waivers in our December 12th meeting, which really wasn't, technically, they were given to him by Mr. Kozinski, who was in the audience, and then he immediately turned them over to Director Salamovich. I just wanted to clearly state that Mr. Petrakos did not have those original waivers.
Okay.
I just thought that was more for a historical point of view. In a year, nobody will remember exactly how it went down. So,
Works for me. All in favor?
aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of February 13th, 2019 Village Board meeting?
I so moved.
Trustee Suisse? Second. Trustee Varian, discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 10th, 2019 Village Board meeting?
So moved.
Trustee Trompe,
I'll second.
trustee Caprio. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Reports and communications from mayor and other officers. I'll start it off. We would like to thank the Heritage Corridor Business Alliance for putting together the State of the Village address. We would also like to thank everyone who came out and joined us. If you were unable to attend, the event can be viewed on the village's website at www.homerglenemail.org. Mayor's report. I would like to thank Trustee Carlo Caprio for all his dedication and commitment for these past years serving the residents of Homer Glen as village trustee. Carlo also has been a very valuable member to the Administration and Finance Committee, helping to guide and implement the financial and administrative decisions that will continue to move the village in the right direction and our founding fathers envisioned. Carlo has also been an instrumental member and chairman of the Homerfest Committee, tirelessly working to ensure Homerfest provides outstanding entertainment and the best festival events in the area. Thank you, and I'm happy for you and I'm sad.
Okay,
But we want to thank you for making a very big difference to the village, Carlo.
thank you.
This is yours.
Very nice. I'm not done yet.
No? We'll go with the village trustees. We'll start with Keith.
Mayor, I have no report for public safety, but I also would like to wish all the best to Trustee Caprio. I'll call him Carlo now. It's a little more informal since it's his last meeting. You've been a great friend and a great mentor. The last 2 years have meant a lot to me. I appreciate it. And congratulations to Trustee Trikey as well on winning the clerk's seat, and the clerk in winning a trustee seat, and to our new trustee to be Ruben, who's just joined us. Congratulations to him as well. That's all.
Thank you.
I'll
Trustee
hold-
Trujillo.
Thank you. I'll hold my parks report to get to K2, so all kind of blends in together. And I want to echo what everybody said. I'll probably cry if I talk about it, so I just want to echo what everyone else says.
I'm not going.
No report this evening, Mayor, but certainly a very sincere thank you to Carlo for the last 4 years have been, I can tell you this town wouldn't have made the progress it's made over the last 4 years if you weren't sitting in that seat. That's a fact. And I've told you this many times before, I didn't have an appreciation for the time and effort that went into some of these things in the village until I sat upon this board and got to see it firsthand, particularly your involvement with the annual fest. There's no way that people in this town understand how many hundreds and hundreds of hours you have put into that event on a volunteer basis. None of us are doing this for the money. On a volunteer basis above and beyond, and I think that just sort of encompasses everything I've seen from you in the last 4 years. Everything has been above and beyond. This has never been it's fun to be a trustee and I'm going to put in the minimum effort, and it's been above and beyond. And we are definitely going to miss your positive presence on this board, the jokes and the laughs, and we're all a bonus in addition to the great things you helped get done over the last 4 years. So we are certainly going to miss you. The one thing I can tell you without hesitation is something that I talk to my kids about, and it's a quote that I rely on often, is character is revealed when pressure is applied. And I think that couldn't have been clearer through this campaign. You took the high road. You ran on facts. You ran on your record. I think the voters got it wrong in this case. That's okay. Voters tend to do that from time to time. But one thing that I think is more important than anything we do up here is your family should be eminently proud of not only the job you've done over the last 4 years, but the race you ran and the case you made. And so we're going to miss you here. And it's not a goodbye. I think it's a break. So you may not have won an election, but there is a win in getting to spend more time with your wife and kids over there. And you know it is. But so I look at this as a break for you and a well-earned break. So, but just a break.
Thank you, Trustee Bergen. Trustee Rogers.
I'm not dead, I'm still here.
I'll ditto exactly what Brian said. I mean, it's been just a joy working with you over the past 4 years, and I know we're going to see each other more. And I'm looking forward to our sushi dinner.
Oh, yeah.
But in addition to that, I've been working with a small group over at Marion Village for probably 3 or 4 months, and my involvement has been minimum. I've kind of just been trying to tutor them and guide them along, and I'm happy to announce that we will be opening the Michael J. Oliveri American Legion Post 11, the Homer Glen American Legion Post 2011, named after Michael Oliveri, who we're all familiar with. And our initial ceremony is scheduled for May 26th at 3 o'clock. That's pending the flag comes in, because the flag came in and there was some misspelling on it and it had to go back out. So we're hoping it'll be back in. So I'm very proud of that group and the work that they put into it, and so I'm excited for it.
Is 2011 significant?
That was the year it was passed. That's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee Rogers. Trustee Sweet.
Thank you, Mayor. Reporting for the Environment Committee. Just a reminder, the Homer Glen Community Cleanup is taking place this Saturday, April 27th, from 10 to 3.
free. An information table will be set up in the Jewel parking lot. Please check in at that location if you're interested in community service hours. You can pick up litter in your parks, along the trails, around your neighborhood, and more information will be available on Facebook under Homer Glen Community Cleanup. The Environment Committee has an opening for a new member. Please contact the village at 708-301-0632 if you're interested. The Big Tree Champion Contest has commenced. Applications can be found on the village website, and this year's nominations must surpass the champions that were selected in 2018. That list was also on the village website. The last bit of information is please mark your calendars for the next stargazing event, which will be held Friday, May 10th. New location, it will be here in Heritage Park. That will be from 8 to 10 p.m. From 7 to 8 p.m., stop by the community room for refreshments and to learn about raptors and meet Sky the Hawk. That concludes my report. And also, everything they said too, Carlo, I don't want.
No worries. My turn? Reporting on behalf of the 2019 Homer Community Festival. Again, our festival is planned for June 20th through the 23rd. Our plans continue to come together. We're not there yet. We've got a lot of work to do as we're moving into Heritage Park here this year, so it's going to be a challenge, but we're going to pull it off and we're going to do really well with it. We have 7 food vendors this year. The band lineup is set. We have the fireworks show on Thursday night. There is no rain date because we're not going to have rain. If we have rain, there is a rain date, but we won't discuss that. We are toying. We have one particular individual, Mike DeVivo, who's been working on with us for years with the fireworks night, and we allow him to take full advantage of the theme and the music to the fireworks, and he's done a spectacular job thus far. The idea he's toying with this year, I'll let Keith explain it in his next meeting, as we don't have all of the groundwork laid for that yet. So Keith will be taking over, I think, on updates for the Homer Community Festival. So with that said, we plan on having a great time. I hope you can join us, and I hope you enjoy our fest every year. I plan to still maintain a high level of interest in working with that. So again, thank you very much. It's been an honor, a privilege to serve, and I love Lake Biz. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Carlo. Someone has some hard shoes to fill, and we all love you too. Next, we'll be going to the village clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the unsung heroes of the village, which is the village staff. It has been a sincere pleasure working with you guys every day for the last 4 years and learning the village from the inside out, and it's been an uncomparable learning experience, and I will miss you all every day, even though I'll see you every week, but I'll still miss you every day. So thank you very much. And thank you for the voters for the opportunity to keep going here.
All set?
Yeah.
Village attorney.
Carl, I won't add to the eulogy, other than to say it's been a pleasure working with you. Thank you.
And bald men are always better.
We're going to have to lose the filter up here because there's not as much shine going out into the stage.
Thank you.
Public safety officials.
I'll go with
You're a bald guy.
Absolutely.
Must be something in the water.
You know, that's right. Yeah, again, I just want to say it's been an absolute honor and privilege to work with you and to get to know you. And I'll end it with that.
Thank you, sir. Administrative analyst.
Thank you, Mayor. Just reporting on behalf of the Active Port Project. Last week we met once again with the construction team to get an update on the progress out there. The asphalt plants are expected to open this week, so hopefully next time I do this report I'll have some more exciting news for that. But there's been good weather for the last week, so we're expecting some progress on that front. We're still awaiting the report back on the ground moisture. It's been a dry week, so hopefully we'll have some progress to be able to pave the port soon, and then most of the progress can begin towards the finish line. We're still working on the dedication date and timeline, and I will keep you guys in the loop on that as that becomes more clear to us. And other than that, Aside from that, about 90% of the plantings have been installed. The grass will wait until after the paving. And then also, related to the comment earlier on the trailer waivers, we've kind of changed our process to make it a little more easier on staff and the board. So starting with this next pay estimate, number 7, we will have the original trailer waivers in our hands when the board approves it instead of us having to hold the check. So it's just kind of a more intuitive process. So that'll be on AMF agendas next week and then on the board agenda on May 8th. Thank you.
Matt. And last, our village manager.
Mr. Mayor, I first would like to say thank you to Trustee Caprio. It was, unfortunately, we didn't get to work very long together, but I do remember during my interviewing process, you were one of the people who pushed me the most on my answers, and I think I called you a troublemaker. So, but I do want to thank you for your service here, and I do look forward to a continued friendship with you, and I may be calling on you from time to time for some advice and guidance. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I just have a few other short things. I did want to just let everyone know that Marion Village is having an open house on Thursday morning for breakfast from 7:30 to 10 a.m. So if anyone's interested in attending that, you can RSVP directly to them. And I'm officially in my 4th week. It's hard to believe that it's been 4 weeks already. It's been a great experience so far. So thank you everyone, including the board and staff, for your support and your sharing information, educating me on everything that we do in Homer Glen. The mayor and I had the opportunity to attend the convention, Chicago Convention Visitors Bureau last week at their executive board meeting, which they have provided an additional seat so that Homer Glen can be represented on the board. And so we will continue to be involved in that as well, so I think that's good news. And we've been doing a bunch of meetings. I've been getting out in the community now after meeting with all the staff and finding out, who our partners are and how we can continue to work with people throughout my tenure here. So that's been very interesting. I had the opportunity to drive around with Mr. DeVivo yesterday for about 3 hours. So that was very informational and very educational as well. And he's a great asset. Yeah. Was it short? No. And we are also, as the board is aware, we're in the process of filling some vacant positions right now, so the interviews will begin for those as well, and hopefully we'll get some additional staff on here soon. But again, thank you very much, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Okay, next is public comment. Okay, there's a lot of duplications on these, so if you could please, if something is already discussed, and it's kind of your same point, we can skip to the next one. If you really want to say something, you're more than welcome to do that. So we'll start out with Michelle Burns.
Hello, Mayor, board members, my neighbors. I'm Dr. Michelle Burns. I'm a physician, a master gardener, and a beekeeper. I'm a member also of the Will County Beekeepers Association. I moved here 20 years ago to unincorporated Lockport because I felt it was the perfect atmosphere to raise my daughters. On the way here, I passed baby goats, baby lambs, horses, and we have chickens and bees on our 1-acre lot. My chickens are kept safe. They're in a coop and a run. I can stand 10 feet away from my beehives, and my bees do not bother me. My bees go up over the top of my house to Messenger Marsh, which is where they collect their pollen. And I can know and tell that they come from there because of the distinctive goldenrod pollen that they bring back in the fall. It's yellow and smells like dirty feet. And I know that that's where they're getting it from because Messenger Marsh is full of goldenrod pollen. Bees forage about 2 miles away from their hives in that area. Honeybees do not attack people in their yards. They do not attack people in their pools. Swarms of honeybees are not dangerous. Swarms are a portion of the beehive that splits off That's how they sort of reproduce as an organism. And a beekeeper can easily trap a swarm barehanded, no equipment. The swarm is not dangerous. They do not sting at that point because they have nothing to defend. Now, if you were to walk up right next to my hives, that's a different story, but 10 feet away, my bees go right over my head. So I've heard of putting 4-foot fences on to, make the bees go a certain way. Be it as it may, they don't need a fence, they do it naturally. Pollinators, including honeybees, are facing dramatic declines in their numbers nationwide, worldwide. We all hear this all the time. Without bees to pollinate, we would not have blueberries, kiwis, almonds, squash, watermelons, macadamia nuts, cherries, plums, avocados, apples, peaches, raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, peppers, lemons, limes, and oranges. Some of these fruits are exclusively pollinated by honeybees. We wouldn't have them if the honeybees were not there. I would please ask you to consider all options before making any decisions regarding the chickens and the bees. I stand here with my neighbors, asking you to consider our town slogan, which is right over your heads, community and nature in harmony. Again, the reason I moved here was because I had the opportunity to teach my children and enjoy our pets. I consider them my pets. They consider them their pets. I would also like to present 2 maps for your viewing pleasure from the Will County Beekeepers Association. The first map is all of the Will County members that are in Will County. The second one is a close-up of members in Homer Glen. There's 19 Will County beekeeping members in Homer Glen, but I know that there are many, many other beekeepers that do not and are not members of the Will County Beekeeping Association. Thank you.
Mayor, before we go on, I think it's important to note here that one thing that we've learned with regards to social media is a lot of false rumors get out there and take fire and everything keeps going and going and going. And I think it's important for people to know and for you all to know that what we're reviewing is to make it less restrictive. So the post that was shared or sent to me was very misleading, made it seem as though we were trying to restrict it and we're trying to get rid of it, and it's the complete opposite. So I just want to make sure everybody understands when they've read this ordinance is far from making what we currently have less restrictive. It's making it open to more lot owners and landowners and just having more accountability on where these hives and coops are being built. That's all. So before, I just don't want everybody to come up here and say, please don't do this, please don't do this. Unless you're coming up and saying, please don't allow more chickens and more bees, then you're on the wrong page. So it's just one thing that, I know that the Sheriff's Department has always been cautious of is when you see it on social media, and you have to first check out the village's website, look at our agendas, read it for yourself. If you're confused, make a phone call to the village. Someone here can clarify things, because that just kind of took off in the wrong direction and a lot of misleading information was out there. So just wanted to clarify that.
Mike Howe? I would want to know on the wrong page. Rachel Sweet?
Hello, everyone. I'm actually here to get a variance approval on my fence. But while I was here, I wanted to talk about the Homer Glen Community Cleanup Day. So thank you so much for mentioning it. But I just wanted to address the community and say this is an event that was started by one of your neighbors. Myself, including a small group of working moms who was tired of seeing all the garbage. The event is this Saturday, so I asked you to get out between 10 and 3. Literally pick up a piece of garbage you see on the side of the road in your yard as you're driving to the gas station, to the grocery store. The great news is there's not a lot compared to last year. Last year was absolutely horrendous, if you remember this time of year. things are looking really nice right now. So the little work we can do now to make it perfect will just make the spring and the summer so much better for the community. So I hope you get out and join us and visit us at the tent at Jewel from 10 to 3. If it's raining, I don't know what we're going to do, but check out the Facebook page and we'll let you know. Okay? Thanks.
Okay, Jason Stratton.
I'll pass.
Okay. Doug Luzinski. You're not going to this one.
Where does he live?
12103 Joe Marie Drive. Very easy. Just for Don. That's all right.
Further.
I'll pass.
Yeah, I'll pass.
Calvin Gozer. Want to put a mic down to you so we can hear you? Thank you.
Hello, I come here today to talk about the recent news my dad, Brian Hoser, has told me. That news is that chickens may not be allowed at houses like mine. We really want chickens, so here is why chickens should be allowed at houses like mine. So as you probably know, kids these days are always on their phones or playing video games because they're bored and have nothing else to do. With chickens, you can play with them, you can feed them, and lots of other things. This is way better for the brain and gets us kids outside. Responsibility. When kids grow up, they don't have a lot of responsibilities, so this could make it harder when they grow up. With chickens, you can learn what responsibilities feel like because you have to feed them, get eggs, play with them, etc. This can affect kids as they grow up. By caring for chickens, kids can also learn about farming and agriculture. On the website, lilydenfarm.com, it says, farming teaches kids life skills. There are some things you cannot learn from a book or in school. Farming teaches children of all ages life skills like raising food, working hard, communication, caring for others, and much more. By learning this, kids can grow and gain knowledge that can one day be important for them. Finally, they're just plain adorable. And that is why we should have chickens at houses like mine.
Thank you, Kelvin. Next is going to be Gabriel Stragokin.
I'll pass.
How they doing, man? Sarah Chad Morris. Sarah and Chad Morris.
We'll just chat.
Just Chad. Okay.
My name is Chad Morris. I will not even remotely be able to convey the ideas as well as my predecessor did an absolutely outstanding job. But I'm also very pro-chicken. I'm kind of speaking in regards to my wife too, so I don't know as nearly as much, but you had said that you would want to remove some of the restrictions, and that was, I guess, one thing that hasn't been discussed is mainly the setback, and that it's supposed to be about 50 feet, I believe, to get that right, from the property line of your neighbor. But most structures, like sheds and whatnot, are 20 feet from your property line. I think there's some discrepancy there. It seems to be a much larger setback required here, and that would put a lot of people at a disadvantage. I think there's also a minimum potentially of 20,000 square feet, which might pose a challenge to a lot of people because the minimum lot that people have is far under that. So I just want to make sure we open up the greatness of chicken ownership to many more people at Homer Glen. And like the gentleman before me had said, I think that, my 3 kids are going to enjoy raising chickens a lot more than playing Fortnite, and I think that has a lot of bearing here. And that's one of the things too is like I said previously, living in harmony with nature. That's one of the benefits, one of the things that's drawn us to Homer Glen. It's one of the things keeping us here. And I just want to make sure that it's a united front, because like we said, on social media, things can go out of control. It's a lot different when somebody comes here and voices their opinion, which I think a lot of people are here to do. So I think if we could, some of the restrictions, it was nice to hear some of the rules and restrictions are going to be decreased. If some of it could just kind of open it up to make sure that more people could enjoy the benefits of having a chicken. But that's all I have to say. I do appreciate what you had said, though, about the social media impact, and that you guys were actually seemingly on board with pro-chicken. I'm also pro-bee as well. I don't know as much about bees, but maybe bees are my future if my wife decides to do that one too. But thanks a lot for listening to me. I know I'm kind of rambling, but I don't know as much about this as my wife, but I'm the one speaking here. Thank you.
Michelle Parker.
Close. Hi, Michelle Partridge here. I am a 15-year Homer Glen resident. My house actually backs up to that nice fine park you're building. So I'm here today to talk about how do we get better access to the park. So as I said, my house backs up to it, yet I have to travel through parking lots, through the township property, leaving my 3 young children and myself, running, strollering, whatever, to get into this fine park that you're building. So I wanted to see how can that be attained. Right now, as you know, it's one way in and one way out, essentially, with a fence around the vast majority of the park. And I understand when you acquired the property that it was a golf course and that made sense, but does that make sense anymore? I also am on the Woodbine West Homeowners Estates Board. I've been on the board for the last 8 years. I'm currently the treasurer. And then I just wanted to clear up some misinformation that I did see in the paper saying that our homeowners board said we don't want access. We've actually never surveyed the 107 homes in our neighborhood. So we had never said we don't want access as a homeowners consensus. We've never got a general consensus. So that can be done in several ways. Take down the fence altogether, take down parts of the fence. So I'm here to advocate for, you've got this great resource, let's make it easier for people that live in the neighborhood to use it. Any questions?
Michelle, that was a misprint also. I believe it that the reporter was asking John Waters was here. He's on your board.
John is on my board.
And John said that they did not have a problem with access.
So I will say that there are people there's a 6-member board, and there are people on the board that do not want access. They somehow feel that if we give access on Dixon, it will become a parking lot. I don't think that is a general consensus. We have never surveyed 107 homes, and I think it's unfair for somebody to speak on behalf of those homes that we've never done our due diligence. So just wanted to clear that up.
And for the record, that's pretty much what John said. He said it was kind of a mixed.
Yeah, it wasn't like a no.
It wasn't a direct no, but
Right.
the paper had printed it as no, and it was too late for us to recommend.
Sure, I just want to make sure you guys don't feel that way, because obviously, again, back to it's not about what the paper says.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Christine Wren.
I was just going to echo what she said, because I live in the community, and I have 2 young kids. I need access.
Okay, thank you. Marty Ravlock?
Close.
I can't read my own writing. So
Yeah.
nothing wrong.
Pavlik.
Fabric.
Everyone, my name is Marty Pavlik. I'm a Glenview Walk Estates resident, and I'm here today to talk about the park prioritization topics that are going to come up later in the evening. First, I'd like to thank everyone in the Parks and Recs Committee. Roughly a year and a half ago, I learned that the village owns a piece of property in our subdivision that was designated for a park. I attended the Parks and Rec Committee roughly a year and a half ago today. I didn't miss one meeting. I only missed one meeting the entire time, and it was due to vacation. And I must say, I learned so much about what the Parks and Recs Committee does. Definitely sheds a lot of light on what government does and how much volunteering there is. I don't think that really gets a lot of public attention, or it's certainly not well thought out in the news. So I'd like to thank you for welcoming me. I'll keep my comments pretty brief to 3 points for the Glenview Walk Estates subdivision. There's really 3 reasons why we need a park. And the first one is there's a tremendous demand for a park. On the committee's suggestion, I walked around the subdivision. I got a petition going, and out of, at that time, there was only 45 homes. I got 43 signatures on those homes. And I'd like to send it back to the village. But with that said, the Glenview Walk Estates subdivision is roughly 72 home sites in its entirety, and only 46 or 48 of them are filled or in construction. And the second need is really around value. Last year I sat through the MI Homes debate in this room, and there was a lot of good points on both sides of the fence of why they should be here. And you know, some of the arguments was roofs in the community, property taxes, and sales taxes. And here we have a subdivision that's only 2/3 complete. And by having a park, it attracts more and more people to the community, which will then attract higher property taxes for those home sites, as well as bring more residents inside the home of Glen for more sales tax. So there's a tremendous amount of value that could be captured by having a park in the Glenview Walk Estates subdivision. And then my third point is around need. Within inside the Glenview Walk Estates subdivision, it's one way in and one way out. It's at 159th and Cedar. And there's really not a park nearby where roughly the 40 or so kids that live in the subdivision, not even counting some of the residents that have grandkids, can walk to. It would be very unsafe for them to walk across 159th to go to Stonebridge or Evelyn's Gate. And last but not least, and I'll just conclude with this, is anybody up here could make an articulate argument of why you need a park, why you don't need a park, but I'm not doing it for the adults of the community. I'm doing it for the kids of the community. My 3 kids are here. Abigail's 8, Ellie's 2, you heard her, and my son Marty's 5. And I'll never forget the first time they swung on a swing and smiled from the ear to ear. And if we build a park in Glenview Walk Estates, you'll fulfill the demand, you'll capture the value, and you'll definitely meet the needs, but you'll also create a lot of smiles in the subdivision. That's all I have to say.
Next will be Jan Zappi.
Well, yes, we're here supporting Marty, and we don't have anything additional to add except that we agree with him and the reasons he gave for considering the park in our subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Pandrus.
I'd just like to reiterate again what Mari said on that Glenview Walk Estates subdivision.
And Michael Pestel.
I'm Michael Pestel from 12108 Graceland Court. My neighbor is here looking to get a variance to go from 40 to 50% of his lot. Again, last time we were here, it was denied. I'm just hoping that you guys stick with that. I have no problem if my neighbor would like to put a pool in. I would just like him to stay within the 40% of what's allowed to build on. If he would like to really go to a pool that was pretty much 100% of his backyard except for the easement, should have bought a bigger lot. Other than that, I'd like to make sure that we don't have flooding problems that are currently, happen from time to time. And again, I got a lot of the other neighbors. He still has to pass that through the Country Woods Homeowners Association. I would just like to make sure that if he does get a pool, I don't have a problem with that. Lots of my neighbors have them. I would just like to make sure that it stays within the norm of what the rest of the neighborhood has. And at the same time, doesn't create problems. So, that's it.
That's it for public comment for tonight. Next would be the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. Is there a motion to approve the following items? 1. The accounts payable for a period of April 12th through April 24th, 2019 in the amount of $515,754.71. 2. the treasurer's report of cash and investments for the periods ending March 31st, 2019. 3, the special village board meeting minutes from March 20th, 2019. And I need a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Berry,
Second.
Mr. Turkey, discussion. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Nancy Turkey.
Aye.
Trustee Barry.
Aye.
Trustee Sweet.
Aye.
Trustee Rogers.
Aye.
Trustee Caprio.
Aye.
Trustee Gray.
Aye.
Motion carries. Legislation items. Approving a proclamation declaring April 20th, 2019 as Arbor Day in the village of Homer Glen. April 26th. Okay. This doesn't say Arbor Day. This says,
Hold on.
It's the wrong.
Yeah, it's the wrong one. It's the wrong one.
okay, well, it's-
Well, we can make a motion without, yeah, we can make a motion without reading it, right? I mean, we have it,
Okay.
so.
all right,
But to clarify, it's April 26th.
okay. Okay.
I so moved.
All right, is there a motion to approve the attached proclamation declaring April 26, 2019 as Arbor Day in the village of Homer Glen?
I so move.
And
I'll
I'm not-
second.
Okay. Discussion? It's wrong proclamation. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
No.
Trustee Gray.
Aye.
Trustee Caprio.
Aye.
Trustee Rogers.
Aye.
Trustee Sweet.
Aye.
Trustee Barry.
Aye.
Trustee Nancy Turkey.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-014, an ordinance approving a variance to increase the impervious surface area from 40% to 44.8% for certain real property located at the R4 Single Family Residential District at 12103 Joan Marie Drive, Homer Glen, Illinois. 12103 Joan Marie Drive, case number HG-1904-V.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Gray, Trustee Traggie, discussion.
No, I was just gonna say, even with the revised plan, it went down to 44.8%. My concern still is the flooding. Does it become a village issue then, if, even though with retainer walls? What issue, because it's still almost 5% over the max, and it's a small lot, and its topography is on a slant.
I believe, hasn't the, Director Gaddy, hasn't the petitioner agreed to put in a retaining wall and some,
Drainage.
water, yeah, some drainage mitigation? Sorry.
Yes, he does. I would request the Director of Development Services to comment on the drainage.
We've been doing a review of the drainage for the site. We have requested some additional information from their engineer. We've got a couple more things that we're going to be requesting. What we're trying to do is get the drainage, basically have them put a drainage line in behind the wall so it collects the water before it basically goes into the rear yard and direct that directly into an adjacent storm structure.
So if he stayed with the 40% and not asking for 44.8, he would not have to do all that, correct? He wouldn't have to put drainage, he wouldn't have to put a retention wall, or is that still because of the topography, he would have to put that in?
We would still make them do that. Obviously, the more lot coverage that they do have, the more runoff they're going to have. So that will, that could potentially affect it. But regardless, whether or not, we're still going to make them do that. Just because questions were raised about the drainage in that area, so we want to make sure we do whatever we can to alleviate it as much as possible.
Okay.
Is the petitioner here?
Yes.
Could you step up to the podium for a second? Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. My name's Doug Consini, for those of you who haven't.
Thank you. In the Plan Commission minutes, you had mentioned, and just to clarify what one of your neighbors had said, the original petition that went before the Plan Commission asked for a variance to go from 40% impervious surface to to 50, and the petitioner has since then modified his variance request. He's now requesting 44.8% variance. So he's already modified that down. That did not have to go back to Planning Commission because he's basically here asking for an appeal, and he's modified the plan. But as we read the Planning Commission minutes, you had stated that you have not decided yet if you were going to put up solid concrete or pavers or what the hard surfaces were going to be?
Yeah, so the consideration right now is that the apron around the pool to be concrete.
Okay.
And if it's, I know we talked about doing a paver system, and I'm willing to do that, if that's something that you guys are looking to do.
Would you be open to putting, I understand putting concrete around the pool, and I fully get that because, you know, you're getting in and out of the pool. But the areas of entertainment or, you know, just relaxation, would you consider putting in the permeable pavers? Because I think that would go a long way toward helping to, you know, mitigate the offset of the 4.8% variance.
Sure.
The fact that I think that what Trustee Suisse was getting at is that within your rights of being able to cover 40% of your lot, you could cover that with concrete, and you'd be making a bigger nuisance in the long run. Whereas if we give you the 4.8%, but ask you conditional upon putting in permeable pavers, I think actually you're going to, you know, in the grand scheme of things, in my mind, you're going to be under the threshold because you could have conducted a bigger nuisance at just 40% of concrete.
Yep.
So I think that this is a good negotiation and a good neighbor policy by putting in the drainage, by putting in the retention wall, and by agreeing to go to permeable pavers.
Well, I think certainly, and I know that they're still reviewing it, but everything we're trying to do with this pool is trying to accommodate what you guys are looking for, following codes. I'm a construction professional by trade, so I understand those sides. We want to do the right thing in terms of dealing with this water runoff. So whether I put in a retaining wall or not, we would always put in that drain tile to make sure that that's a proper construction detail to deal with that runoff water. It's a concern of ours. We want to do it the right way.
Well, I appreciate that you'll do the permeable pavers because like I said, I think that'll go a long way.
So I think it's understanding that it's up to that 40%, where if we're asking for that extra 4.8%, which comes to like 600 square feet, if that's what you guys are looking for to have a permeable system, you know, certainly.
Yeah, and again, you know, I think that'd be a great threshold if we just started at 600 square feet. If you want to go more, obviously, you know, that would be great because it's only going to benefit everybody in the area anyhow, so.
Understood.
That's my thought.
What is the size of the concrete apron around the pool that you're thinking of putting in?
It varies, so 4 feet.
4 feet max?
Yeah.
How big is the pool?
16 by
34.
34 plus the steps, so an additional 3 feet.
20 by 38 for concrete surface.
So our idea behind this is obviously, like you guys had said, that putting in a pool is probably a fairly easy process, and the variance is to add some additional patio to make this a space that it's not just about splashing around in the pool, it's utilizing it for an environment that, for the amount of time that people spend at a pool, enjoying those areas. It's an extension of your home, it's some additional areas. And are we limited because we have a really nice home on a kind of a small lot? That 40% does become a little bit restrictive. So we did look at it in terms of the first time when we did talk about adding, you know, jumping 10% and going to 50%. We did some design development, we went back to the drawing board. We tried to reduce that to a place where we're comfortable with just getting it down to a point where we still have those areas, those livable areas that we can enjoy the pool, and that's where we came to was 48 or 44.8%. So just to kind of give you guys some background and some context. You know, there's been a lot of conversations in the past month with the help of VJ and his staff, getting him a lot of additional information just so that this can be an educated decision on whether this gets approved or not as far as the additional patio. Okay, so we've addressed all the drainage issues with these retention walls and good construction practices. It's not going to be a drain tile that just jets water through the wall and dumps it into the easement. We're going to do a direct connection to the stormwater basin, bypassing all that stuff. So we're not introducing any further water into that drainage easement. Some of the other issues that came up is we're not doing anything inside the drainage easement. I'm leaving that alone. We're going to let it do its job. That's the whole point of it. Okay? One of the items that came up, and obviously it's a flooding issue. As soon as that comes up, it gets everybody's attention. I get it. Okay? It's something that we have to give it its due respect. I'm not trying to tell you guys to not consider it. But I think that there's been a lot of context that's been drawn up in the past month on why that's become an issue. And I think that there's been some people on VJ staff, maybe some other people that have actually visually gone and looked at it, okay? And in my opinion, in my background, there's some existing conditions in my neighbor's yard that promote, okay, standing water in his backyard, okay? He has a beautiful home on a small lot. He's very close to the rear setback lines. He has a walkout basement, which doesn't allow him to drain water like some of the other adjacent yards away from his yard. His patio is within 12 or 13 feet of the property line. So there are things that promote standing water or slow draining water in his backyard. Okay, so all I would ask is that the review process on whether my variance gets approved or not gets scrutinized the way that it should. Make sure that my building practice and my project gets built per the codes, per the covenants. That's what that process is for. But it shouldn't be scrutinized in a way that you're trying to solve an existing problem on an adjacent yard, that whether I put a pool in or not, or whether I add 600 feet of concrete, it's not going to solve his problem. Okay? The next rainfall, his yard's going to flood. He's going to have standing water. If I put a pool in, the next big rainfall, he's going to have the same problem. So if it's, but it's not. I have an engineer that has signed off on the drainage modifications that I'm making that says it will not impact your yard. That's a stamped
That's in
drawing.
your subdivision today. I live in the subdivision just south of you. That street is at a very high level going downward towards the front.
Yeah, towards the west end, it is. It's
Yes.
absolutely very high.
Very high.
Yep.
So that water should travel pretty quickly.
It should.
From the yards.
To the southwest corner of my yard, where the storm basin is in his backyard. Okay, so that walkout basement in that yard is at the lowest point on that entire street, and all the water from the surrounding yards come back to that storm basin. Okay? It promotes an area in his yard, the way that it's built. No fault of his own, for whatever reason, that's where standing water goes. Okay? So I respect the fact that he's bringing up that there is an issue. I just don't know that they are attributable to each other.
Well, we're worried about your property.
Okay.
Because if
And I
your
appreciate
property
that.
gets screwed up, then it affects him, so we want to.
Absolutely.
Yours is going to be correct. BJ, did you still say you're waiting for some engineering on this?
No. We've got a couple of things we're going to be commenting back to their engineer on, just for some additional details and information regarding the drain tile that we requested, and then some drainage structures.
All right, because the only reason I ask is if we're going to vote on this tonight, there's going to be some changes, and if we're talking about going permeable, which would definitely help you, I just want to make sure we all know what we're voting on.
Can we bring this back?
I mean,
After you have all the details.
Can you vote on change of regulations?
I'll modify my motion to include the permeable pavers. I mean, it sounds like the other.
I still have, and I guess it's a question to the trustees, is how does this qualify for a variance? When it's not a hardship, he just wants a bigger patio, right? He wants a bigger living area. In the past, me personally, I haven't had a problem giving out variances to people, like the fences that are on the corners, or the neighbor. I think we've had some pools like this, but there's been no objections from neighbors. When there's been objections from neighbors, then I have a hard time. So I guess I need feedback from you all as to why this qualifies for a variance when there is no hardship.
well, it might not even have to qualify for a variance if he changes the pavers over. It could be
Then we don't need to vote on it.
Well, the problem with that is that the village still doesn't recognize permeable pavers. There's no credit applied to permeable pavers, okay? That's obviously a different conversation, but to your point, I mean, it's, whether it's in the bylaws or the covenants of the codes or whatnot, it's still something that's negotiable, but.
Mr. Mayor, it is my understanding that our current code does not allow for permeable pavers. However, we do give a credit for the surface of the water, for the pool.
For the pool.
Yeah.
It's a 50% reduction for
Right.
the service of the
Right.
pool, which must be already
So
calculated.
technically, even if
So-
we did the
so that's
permeable
already
pavers, it would still be a
calculated.
variance.
My point was that you're absolutely right. Does it hit a hardship? No, but that's not the only criteria either for giving a variance. But to my point was that if this gentleman lowered it down to 40%, you're right, he wouldn't be here necessarily. But that would be a bigger nuisance if it was all concrete, because it would just be nothing but runoff.
Well, the engineer should have to sign off on it, saying that it's not going to be a nuisance, you know, if it was all.
Right, and that's where we're saying we'll hold up and wait for, well, at 40 or 44.8, at 44.8, what I'm saying is that in order to get my approval of the 44.8%, I want a negotiation to say that a portion of that hard surface is going to be something that will, you know, allow the water to perk through. So that, you're right, I'm not just knee-jerk giving a variance, I'm saying, hey, let's work together here. But, you know, if he didn't want to work with us, he could say, well, I'll just go back, I'll knock it down to 40%. I'll pave over, you know, everything. And then, to me, that's a bigger nuisance in the long run, because right now, we're in a negotiation where he's going to do as much mitigation as he can by doing the tying into the storm sewer, by doing the retention wall, by putting in the permeable paver. So, again, you're right, but as far as variances go, it's always a nice edge on why we give out variances. And sometimes, for me, my justification is that, you know, we want to try to give people the opportunity to enjoy their property as much as they can and try to stay out of their way in doing that. Now, if he wanted to do all the way to the edges and over the easements and everything, obviously we'd all be saying, no, you can't do that, you know. I know, to me, I think this is a bigger win for us to grant it. So.
No, if he had it at 40%, and did all concrete, he would still have to get okay for the drainage and everything from the engineering department anyways.
Right,
so
but
I get it.
So he would have less runoff by having 44% and 600 square feet or more of that being permeable pavers.
And we have discussed permeable pavers, so I apologize.
That would be for an engineer to say.
That's one of our problems that we do have. We talk about things, but we're not initiating them. The permeable pavers is something that should be added into this, because they do work. I mean, they've showed studies on them. We've had stuff out before this board was on, because it was talked about with some houses that a builder wanted to put in, and I think it's something we should really look into and see if we can get something changed, because the whole idea here is we don't want flooding for anybody. So if we can help, I know it costs more money for it, but I mean, they have one business that did 7.5 acres of it for parking lots, permeable pavers. So I think it's something we should look into, see what it would work out for engineering wise, if we did change it over to that, and just so we can find out if we get below the 40 or below.
Well, what if you knock off, okay, you have a huge pool, 16 by 34.
I would argue not for a family of 5.
Yeah, it's not a big one. Standard.
Standard.
No, I guess I tend to agree with Keith on the premise. I would just like to maybe have independent verification that the premise is correct, right? If the permeable pavers got that under 40, and I think, not disregarding Trustee Rogers' point, but this is the variance process playing itself out, and it may be better through the variance process than the alternative. I'd like to have that premise independently verified, because I'd like to agree with that. I just don't know if that's exactly true.
I have a question. Is there a reason you didn't go to your association first, or?
We did. We communicated with the HOA to understand what the process was, okay? And we forwarded that information to VJ and his crew. And our covenants address not pools, but fences. So we're within those covenants. And what their comment was is that once the village approves your plan, send us the plan so that we can ensure that you guys are within our covenants. So we've communicated with the HOA, and they're aware of what we're trying to do and where we are in the process. And they're just waiting to get the final plan that gets approved here, so that we'll submit it.
I just want a clarification on that. And then the other thing was, I know we're talking 44.8%. Are you saying that 40% would be the coverage and then the additional 4.8 would be the pavers? Or are you saying it'd be less?
You brought it up before I could.
Yeah,
because you guys are going back and forth. That you're right. If I was staying with 40%, I wouldn't have to be standing here.
Right, but you're looking
So
to.
yeah, if it's that additional 600 square feet, which is what we're asking for, which is the 4.8% above, right? If that's something that is more amenable than it is permeable pavers, of course, okay. So it's just kind of understanding where your guys' threshold is in terms of accepting this kind of design. I kind of presented my case in terms of like just what we wanted to do as a pool and the environment that we were looking for, okay? And all the things that we've addressed, even though I know that I'm exceeding that lot coverage, you know, all the other aspects. I don't want to introduce or knowingly introduce any water to any other neighbor's yard. I totally get that side of it. I don't believe that I am in asking for this increase, okay? But obviously that's for VJ and his team to you know, assess along with, you know, Sam and his engineers as far as the pool installation company. But I think we've done that, okay? Our engineers have signed our drawings that we have submitted indicating that what we're doing to my backyard isn't going to introduce additional water at the 44.8% coverage, okay? So that's kind of what has been presented. So I understand what you guys are saying. Like I said, I'm amenable to the permeable side of it, but we're still kind of at the 44.8%, and I guess it's more, is that acceptable or is that not?
Well, my question, I guess, is because, how do I word this? So everyone's kind of throwing around different numbers, but are you willing to go, so you're at the are you looking for most concrete at 40% and then adding the 4.8 of the pavers? Or are you looking to do like 37% of the coverage and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, are you looking to give and take a little bit?
Yes, and to leave it vague, I am willing to give and take. I guess it's, I don't have exact numbers, but yes, I'm open to that. I see what you're saying.
Clarification, because it sounded like it was the max and then the 4.8 in the pavers. But if you're willing to go down on that 40% with the pavers, that would be better.
It sounds like from what Trustee Gray had said was that talking about, other than the 4-foot concrete apron, the board was looking for permeable pavers for the
landscaping area.
So that might be, yes, so that may be more than 4.8% covered, where that's 600 square feet.
I agree with you, that might be more. I just don't have that.
But so I guess my recommendation would be, I think the board should probably table the issue to allow the petitioner to go back and, number one, find out what that increase is going to be in that situation, and also work with staff to make sure that that you guys are on the same page. And what we're looking at from the water runoff and also what the engineer's going to say.
And to verify Trustee Burion's point, because it's absolutely valid. We're playing engineer up here. I'm no engineer by any stretch of the imagination. I just know the permeable pavers exist and they do mitigate water, you know?
Well, and Christina had a good point. I may have misspoke when I was talking from a technical perspective. I'm talking from a practical perspective. I'm not saying it needs to be under 40, but if the permeable, if we do the math, and the permeable accomplishes this task better than the full concrete at 40, then
it's a win.
Even if it ends up still being 44.8 because we're not giving credit on the permeable anyways, the practical side is what I guess I was talking about.
So do I need to retract the motion, or can I just motion to table?
Well,
You just need to do a motion to table.
I motion to table until we have further information on engineering and all the other items that Attorney Hanson had listed.
You were second.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it.
VJ, you know what we're doing?
We'll watch the tape. Okay, thanks everybody.
Okay, next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-015, an ordinance approving one, a variance to allow a 6-foot high fence in the corner side yard, 2, a variance to permit a deck less than 10 feet from the side property line for certain real property located in the R4 single-family residential district of 14423 South Pine Grove Drive, Homer, Glen, Illinois, 14423 South Pine Grove Drive, case number HG 1906-B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Troy, any discussion?
When we bring up the petitioner, because I believe this is Miss Sweet, right?
Is the petitioner here?
She is. Rachel Sweet. She's cleaning up all portions of home.
Hi.
This is basically you're replacing existing with existing. Is kind of the gist here.
Yes, there's one small teeny tiny tweak right in the front to put 2.5 pieces of fence with L shape, but other than that, it's the exact same.
We see this all the time.
Yeah.
I know at this point, it's been brought up a million times that, maybe we need to do a deeper dive on some of these things, or that we need to hit these corners, but that's all I have.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thanks. Aye.
Trustee Capri?
Aye.
Trustee Roderick?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Berry?
Aye.
Trustee McFetrich?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-016, an ordinance adopting the Village of Homer Glen's budget for fiscal year ending May 1st, 2019, and ending April 30th, 2020, in Homer Glen, Illinois?
So moved.
Trustee Berrien.
Second.
Gray. Discussion? Madam Clerk?
Sorry, that was quick. I'm not gonna, I talked quite a bit when we first looked at this in March. I'd just like to reiterate, as we pass it, that Homer Glen continues to do more with less money than any town around us. And it's really not even close. From a tax standpoint to what we get from the level of staffing for a town of nearly 25,000 people. I think it's a testament to staff of the job they do comparatively to every other town around us. And I think it's something that we should tout a little more often and make sure that people understand the value for the dollar they're getting for the village portion of their taxes, which a property tax portion is 0. No town around us has 0 property tax for the village. And so I just think, not to pat ourselves on the back, but this is, and as I said in my previous comments, this precedes us too. It's not like we're the first board and mayor this has been a legacy of this town. And it's something I think that we all should be proud of, the staff should be proud of, and more importantly, the residents should be proud of the type of governance that they've demanded in this town. And I think this budget, like the previous budgets we've approved, continues to invest in the future of Homer Glen. And I think we do it in a very conservative manner. And I just thank you to John Sawyers for all the work and effort put into this. I know the hours and hours and hours, and again, your time here and your effort on this, I know is a little bit of a baby for you. You predate many of us, and I think as we continue to move forward, your fingerprint is all over this, and you've done a great job again.
Thank you. Can I add something? I'm really proud of the finance situation here. We post this up on our website under transparency. We'll have 5 years worth of budgets, 5 years worth of audits, 5 years worth of expenses, everything. If you want to take a deep dive into the finances of Homer Glen, it's there on our website. And I welcome it, and if anybody would have any questions, I'd be welcome to answer them at a later point. So thank you very much. And it is very much a team effort putting this together. It really is.
I do have something to say too, but Brian beat me to it as he always does. John, thank you for doing this. I know I got a bunch of questions. I appreciate you clarifying a lot of the questions, a lot of the Facebook rumors, a lot of the drama that's out there about the expenses here and there. And I appreciate you clarifying a lot of those hiccups and rumors. And if anybody does have any questions or concerns, I know that you're always available because you were available for me many times with the questions I had. So thank you very much, and I'm happy with this.
Thanks, John. One last thing there.
It's always
Sorry.
gotta be-
But on the transparency part of it, which I do think is important for the residents, I spend a lot of time on other governmental body websites. There is not a governmental body in our area that has more available online. And I can't tell you how many times I have questions or I need to be reminded of something that I don't have to call and trouble staff because I can go to our website and I pull it from the bills to the budgets to it is unrivaled for any communities around us, and I think it's something also to be proud of.
It's a real great tool for residents if they want to know a little bit more about the community. And we're really proud of what we put out and welcome any kind of inquiries on it.
Yes, we do.
And just because I want to get the last word, thank you, John.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Mapes-Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Varian?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Capper?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 19-013, an ordinance amending section 220-839, chapter 220 of the Code of the Village of Homer Glen pertaining to keeping of farm animals. Village of Homer Glen case number HG 1903-A.
So moved.
Trustee Trikey,
I'll second.
Trustee Caprio, discussion.
I do want to say, echo what Beth had said earlier. I had spent many hours battling the Facebook challenge of correcting a lot of the rumors and a lot of the things, and I typically don't do that, but this was something that I took some time with the last meeting. We had a lot of discussion about it, but with any matter in particular that is on Facebook, I would ask that, if the resident really does have an issue or concern or question or is confused by something that we're talking about, please reach out to somebody in the village before the rumors get out there and it starts this big controversy of things that are not true. We are looking to lessen the restrictions, just like that.
What kind of changes do you want to implement?
We're going to talk about that.
Oh, now?
And yeah.
One of the changes I think that Trustee Rogers and Trustee Turkey are saying is that right now it is not allowed to have chickens and bees unless you're on a piece of property that's zoned agricultural.
Right.
So we don't allow chickens and bees anywhere other than agricultural lots. As our current ordinance is written, we don't allow that. We've had a stay on any enforcement, so if the code enforcement is driving around and they see one in an area that is not an agriculturally zoned area, they are not enforcing. They've been instructed by, I think this predates me, if I remember correctly, Joe, not to enforce that. Until we can get our heads around what we want this ordinance to be. So while this ordinance might look like it's restrictive, it's really going to allow chickens and bees in some areas. But right now, if we lift that stay of enforcement, they are not allowed anywhere other than agricultural. So I think that's the point.
That's one main one.
Right. I think that's the point that the two trustees had tried to address earlier, is that we're making it less restrictive, even though there are restrictions obviously written in here. We're trying to open it up to some zoning areas where currently it does not exist. Right, Chair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Keith.
Director Gaddis, can you just review for us the acreage of what we're allowing?
Sure.
E1s and R1s, can we just go each one?
Sure.
So people know where these chickens and bees will be permitted other than ag?
Sure. So for chickens, we're kind of extending, going beyond the ag properties into E1 and E2 districts, which are 2.5 acres and above, with a special use permit. I'm sorry, as a permitted. And then into R1 and R2, the special use permit. R2 is like 1 acre property. And that's one thing I'd like to bring to attention for the board. If you look at the illustration in your staff report, with the 75-foot setback that you recommended at the last meeting instead of 50, it's going to make it really hard for 1 acre lots to have chickens. It's going to totally wipe out where they can put it. There will be a kind of limits to the building in that area. So really, you may want to look at the 75-foot restriction that was changed at the last meeting for chickens. And for bees, the ordinance allows for E1 and E2, which is 210 acres and above, with a special use permit. So those are some of the big changes made since the last meeting.
It just pertains to chickens.
Chickens and bees, and we allow bees in E1 and E2 with a special use permit. We brought down the acreage was reduced from 5 to 2.5 acres. So that was another change made at the last meeting.
And you were saying 75 per chickens is 50?
Well, the recommendation was 75 for both, and for bees it's fine because they're in a state residential. For chickens, if you take a 1 acre lot, they're like your
So I must be reading this on because it says to maintain a minimum setback of 50.
You gotta go to where all this yellow starts happening, that's where all the changes are.
But so you're over,
That's the one strict restriction that's getting more strict, I guess you'd say. It was 50 and it was talked about, it wasn't voted on, but it was talked about making it 75 feet.
at the last meeting.
Yeah.
So that would wipe out all the 1 acre lots from having chickens.
I'm okay with chickens. I'm okay with chickens on half acres, I'm okay with chickens on acres. I mean,
We didn't address half acres. This is
I
one acre.
understand, this is just me talking. Acre, absolutely, half acre, I'm even okay with. I mean, they obviously, if it's a half acre, do they have to still come in for a permit?
Not for E1 or E2, they need to come in for R1 and R2, which is 1 acre and 60,000 square feet. So for those two, they need to come in for. That means a setback of 75 feet instead of 50.
But what you're saying is on a 1 acre lot, 75-foot setback.
Yeah, makes it really restrictive.
Overly restrictive?
Well, actually, it totally wipes
By
out.
that.
Yeah, it totally wipes out the 1 acre lots. You're limited to the building footprint, so.
What if it was 1 acre 50?
I'm sorry?
What if it was 1 acre 50?
That would give some, room for chicken
A
coops.
little bit more leeway?
I was okay with 50 after reading about the bees. These aren't the kinds
This
of
is
chickens.
chickens.
No, the bees as well, though.
You know, you said 2.5 acres.
But I know, but you're wanting it to go to 75, and I was okay with that at 50.
Yeah, me too.
And this is coming from someone whose dad is deathly allergic to bees. He can't get stung by a bee, and it's not even going to help him anymore at his age. Because the honeybees aren't the bees that these people are allergic to.
Yes.
And right now, the highlighted changes and the track changes, it says bees permitted in E1 and E2 with a special use permit. No R1, no R2, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
And it says that the no more than 2 hives, and the setbacks would go to 75. So are you okay with the E1 and E2 as special use with a 50-foot? Is that what you're saying for bees?
How it was before at planning.
But it was 5 acres before, I think, right?
Yeah, they
dropped
dropped it to 5.
They dropped it
I
to
think
2.5.
actually, when it first went to plan, it was basically open to everything with the setbacks, hoping to throttle it back. Plan changed it up to 5 acres.
Yeah, I was okay with the 50 based on the diagram that he submitted in the packets. That's going to eliminate so many people from having it.
What is, is our bee lady who's still, I'm sorry, the person who spoke about the bees before? Michelle, is there like a rule for the Will County Bee Association that says how many acres it has to be?
No. People in Plainfield, our president has a fairly small lot, and he has 2 huts, and he's a very small lot. I would also like to point out that the city of Chicago, they have elements, and the city of Chicago is up higher than the city of Portsmouth.
They have
They have the hives on the roofs.
Oh.
On the roofs. And they have chickens, city of Chicago allows chickens.
What do you, do you mind if I ask how many acres you have?
2 to 1.
One.
And the way it's positioned, it is in the corner where my neighbor's shed is and where my other neighbor's dead space is. So my bees don't bother.
And the last gentleman, Sharon, that spoke at the last meeting with the bees, he also was a beekeeper.
Yes.
And what was his recommendation? 2.5. 2.5.
He suggested 2.5.
He suggested 2.5, but was he okay with less?
Well,
Actually, he said that it would
I'd
start
like to
getting
also
crowded
know
unless
how
he did
many
not
cats.
recommend less.
Right, because of where they could go for their, well, she's right up against Messenger Woods, so it's a different situation where.
Sustainability of the hive
Getting
itself.
I've got many beekeepers have their bees on very small lots. Very small lots.
There's wild bees out there.
Well, when we had the small lots that we had the issues last time with going into people's pools and things like that.
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor and the board, I would just say that, you know, our building official did a lot of research on other comparable communities as well, and we think this is like a baby step and to slowly get to where we may need to be, which is why in the staff report we included that this is something we'd like to get going, evaluate it after 6 months or by the end of the year, report back to the board on how it's going. If we could tweak it then and make additional recommendations to see how it's going, but we didn't want to, you know, we don't want to throw everything out there. We want to take the right steps and be conservative, but also lessen the restrictions over time and see how it goes.
So I guess my questions come, okay, so we set these rules in place, and then we have this, we have Michelle that currently lives on an acre lot. Are we gonna make her get rid of her bees?
There's also 6 months to comply rule, so that's.
And then in 6 months after that, then we say, okay, now we're gonna lower down 1 acre. It just seems kind of like, you know, I'm just trying to, I mean, like I said in the last meeting, I hate to have all these orphan birds and bees, you know, like I kind of want to work with the community on what they have currently. I don't want everyone to go crazy and just go getting birds and chickens, but I want, you know, I would hate to see Michelle have to comply within 6 months. If
So,
we're
okay,
going to reevaluate again in 6 months.
So that would be a question for our village attorney. How do we handle the compliance requirement? If we're going to reevaluate next spring, how do we handle it? What's the best way to handle it?
If the compliance is within 6 months, and you're going to be reviewing it, at the time you review it, you can issue it under state like you did this time.
So can we make the 6 months like 9 months so we have enough time to evaluate end of the year?
You could.
Well, what's the reason? If we're giving them 6 or 9 months to comply, nobody's going to comply in those 9 months. We're back to where we are right now.
Right. That's my point.
I think 9 months is research, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she's
We
obviously.
actually discussed 3 months as the compliance timeframe for this. I mean, it's a delicate balance here that we have to deal with. It's the people that are non-compliant now or that have these birds or chickens and bees that aren't a nuisance, and then we have instances where they are a nuisance to neighbors and it's a problem. And that's the challenge we have as far as enforcement goes. And with the way that ordinance was written, is written now, they would be prohibited throughout the community except on the agricultural properties. And they've become so abundant in the community, chickens and bees, that they're here. I mean, they're here. In everybody's neighborhood, a lot of times you don't even know they're there because they're not a nuisance. What this really does, it gives us the ability to enforce problems when they're out there. A lot of these are behind 6-foot fences and people don't even know they're there. So they're not bothering anybody. I don't know if we want to go out and be the police, chicken and bee police, but if they're really not a nuisance and they're not bothering anybody, we can enforce it when it does. It gives us the ability to enforce it when it does become a problem.
Is there anyone in the audience that's against the chickens and the bees?
Michelle, can you tell us the longevity of a beehive? I mean, do they go on forever? Does a beehive have a life cycle? Is there a birth and a death?
Some winters are worse than others. Sometimes you lose all of your beehives, and you replace them in the spring.
And is there a natural timeline for a beehive? Or is it just kind of keep going on?
A queen will live for 3 to 5 years, but when a queen is less
So,
productive, you may replace them in a year or 2.
Come on,
Beehives can be kept from year to year, and if you're good at keeping them and sledding them through the winter, if they're the type of bee that can survive Illinois, they can live for years and years and years. Because the queen lives for 3 to 5 years, once she is deemed by the hive to be less than prolific in terms of laying eggs, they replace her. They replace her automatically. Beekeepers, especially people that are from Will County, we're very responsible. We don't want our bees in people's pools. We don't want them swarming. And a swarm, again, like I mentioned, is not a dangerous thing. It's scary, of course, But a beekeeper can go up to a swarm, gather it in a box, and not get stung because the bees are not, they're not defending anything at that point. I just encourage you to just do a little research. I've taken classes at Joliet Junior College. I'd be glad to provide the board with instructors, with people that are mentors out of the Will County Beekeeping Association. If you eliminate bees on 1 acre lots, I don't know if anybody will have beehives, because these are backyard bees. Everybody's got backyard bees. And nobody's gonna have chickens, because chickens are in their tiny little backyards. Nobody's gonna have chickens, and nobody's gonna have bees.
You know, I've been a beekeeper for 5 years, and I don't even wear a suit to keep my bees. I do everything that I need to do, collect the honey, clean them up, prepare them. They've never caused any problems, other than previously I used to live in more of a neighborhood, and the bees would only get into the pool when I didn't have water available. And really, that was the only time I've ever got complaints from a neighbor. And I mean, now it's not really an issue for me, unfortunately. I mean, I'm in ag, so this doesn't really apply. But I mean, I do feel for you guys, because really there's, you know, the bees are not a nuisance, and neither are chickens. You know, I just wish that they would, you know, really unrestrict these laws and allow more people to keep them, because if anything, it just keeps nature in our backyards, and that's really what we want.
Well, who made the motion? You. Oh, me. I would like to, oh wait, or did you? I would like to table this, give the bees and the birds a little more life span for a little while, until we can dive into it a little bit more.
But I think the issue of tabling it is we're getting complaints from residents.
Okay, so the ones that we have complaints about are the ones that we need to go look at. Just like Joe said, no matter if we changed it to 2.5 acres or 1 acre or quarter acre, these people that want their birds and their chickens and their bees, they're not getting complaints. So they're kind of like, not to sound goofy, but they're kind of flying under the radar. So it doesn't really matter if they're for being good beekeepers and good chicken people.
But how do you respond to the neighbor who's complaining about his neighbor?
Well, the current rule is they can't have them anyways, right? They can't have them now anyways because they're not on ag property.
If I may, I reviewed the last meeting. There were 2 people that complained, correct?
No, we're not saying at the meetings, the code enforcement.
No, they didn't complain. I reviewed the last minutes. I watched the last meeting.
They didn't complain about the bees. They were complaining because they wanted it on a quarter of an acre, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they weren't complaining they were here because they wanted to have bees on quarter.
We wanted that threshold so low that everybody could qualify.
That was it.
And no one showed up tonight to complain, so
Yeah.
it still says something, because if
So, I mean, but the people that we have the nuisances about, they're still in violation anyway, so we could still enforce whatever we have right now, because that's what we have.
Well, currently there's a stay though, so we would have to have you remove.
We would have to stay.
Because right now we're not doing any enforcement.
So can we just modify the stay that it's only on nuisance calls?
I like that idea.
But then we lose control of who hasn't.
Right. We don't have control now.
Well, I mean, we have it to where people are registering, so we know who hasn't.
Do you think the people that have them now are gonna register and tell on themselves if we're gonna make them get rid of them in 6 months?
No, I'm actually surprised that Michelle said only an acre, until we said 2.5. I wish you would have said 2.5, and it would have been a dead issue.
But I'm not neither of the neighbors. Neither are any of the neighbors in Homer Glen. Maybe few, sorry, but he's an agricultural.
Well, maybe we need to come up with a third option here. And again, this probably goes to Trustee Troike, wanting to table it and get more time. But maybe there's a way that our esteemed counselor can help us with a way to provide some of these people who don't currently qualify for any of what we're considering, but we can give them enough road that their natural timelines of what they're doing, expires. I mean, we know there's an expiration date on chickens, and there must be something on bees. And again, I don't want to come down like the heavy hand of the law and make people kill their chickens or their bees. So maybe there's a way we can we can say anybody who's got something right now, yes, sorry, Tom.
Kelvin, we won't kill your
You know,
jokes, I promise.
somebody who's got something right now, maybe we make a database there and we monitor that. So again, maybe we just need some more time to.
But Trustee Gray, what you're saying then is, because we were allowing only a few, like 1 acre and above for chickens. Now, what you're saying is that my next door neighbor
1 acre
who
and
lives
above in
on...
R2, only in R2 and R1.
Right, that's
So
all we
this-
allow is
if
1
these
acre
people are
and above.
I don't know what our current zoning is. I mean, isn't there some legacy zoning that we have that still have larger lots, but it is zoned differently?
Well, that's...
Sorry, what are you?
We have some legacy lots that are, they're bigger than, you know, what you might typically find in an R4, but they are, you know, they might be R2 size, but they're in an R4.
There are some grandfather zoning districts, quite a few. There's one for Woodbine subdivision, separate zoning. So we got, yeah, so we got quite a few grandfather zoning districts. They're way below the R2, so they don't even qualify here anyway.
I think I tried to make a motion to table.
Go ahead, Brian.
Can I just ask Joe a question? Joe, as this is presented with the nuisance complaints we're currently getting, as it's currently written, do you think that helps you address the nuisance complaints?
And we'll address all of them because there's...
I mean, in general, it's written with nuisance in the language in there anyway, irregardless, that there's nuisance language in there. So if it becomes a nuisance with your neighbor, for some reason you're not maintaining your coop, if it's with the chickens, if not so much with the bees, I don't know. We've only had a couple instances of complaints with bees, but I think, you know, the general maintenance and everything like that with the chickens, some have gotten out and run around, that's been an issue.
I'm just wondering if maybe the compromise here is take that baby step. And I don't think this solves the problem yet, because I think there is more investigation that needs to occur, I think, before we all make a fully educated opinion on this. But if we pass this as presented and extended the stay, but took that baby step while we continued, does that move the ball forward here at all tonight?
No,
As opposed to just tabling it?
I think the nuisance ones were on a quarter.
What we can do with the nuisance is, if we do get a nuisance complaint regarding chickens or bees, is we can approach the owners and try and get some type of compliance with the issue, whatever the issue may be. That may be a first step. Sometimes, I mean, these could be people's pets that we're talking about, potentially them having to do something with, which becomes a very sensitive issue.
I think, Joe, what you're talking about is you've got, the state is on enforcement of the zoning. So for example, if it's not an agricultural district, you shouldn't have bees or chickens. I think you can still enforce nuisances.
Correct.
If you have a situation where they're not maintaining the coop, you can still address that issue,
As it
regardless of the
currently
state.
stands, yeah.
Regardless of whether you tabled it, whether you stated, however you handle it, that's still able to be addressed.
But are we creating a bigger, that's my only problem, is the nuisance factor? More wild animals going after loose chickens in the yards and neighbor fighting neighbor because of that?
Sorry, Mayor, you want them to raise their hands before they just start shouting out?
Right.
Let's do that. We don't need a rabble. Sorry.
I'm just concerned about.
Even with the bees, most of the nuisance complaints we've found have to do with lack of water for the bees, so they've ended up in people's pools.
Right, well, the gentleman just said back there, and it's.
Which is in the regulation, they have to have an ample supply of water.
So what have we concluded here?
Right now, there's a motion to table, but it hasn't been seconded yet.
Who seconded it?
No,
No.
Or,
Motion.
You motioned it.
I'll second.
thank you, Carl.
Okay. All right.
And it's just the direction I'm getting as far as code enforcement is, try to, if we do get nuisance complaints, deal with them individually,
Still
try and
right.
maintain compliance and go from there.
Until we can dig a little deeper.
Yes.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, so it's tabled, we're not going to
Well,
have.
we gotta do a roll call.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Trustee Mary Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Okay, table. Next, is there a motion to approve resolution number 19-001, a resolution that selects Scouter Road as the new alignment for the north-south connector to the Cape Farm Road, Bruce Road, SRA route.
That's the move.
Gabriel?
Second.
Trustee Gray. Discussion?
Director Salmo, can you just, because as soon as it's like a hot topic that's government, can you just briefly explain what we're doing here?
And basically what it is in previous meeting of the TCC committee, the Transportation Corridor Committee, they had selected the middle alignment, the exhibit, there's kind of a box at the eastern end, so there's kind of the Galva Road middle alignment and then Cedar Road. So previously, the middle alignment was selected as the kind of the eastern route. And the whole point of this whole SRA route is basically to get traffic from the two terminus points. So the western terminus point is the intersection of Route 30, Caton Farm, and Gaylord Road. And then the eastern terminus point is 159th and Cedar Road. So the whole point is to get traffic from those 2 points. So after the middle alignment was selected several years ago, Homer Glen, Homer Township, and Lockport had raised some concerns of whether or not that was the best route to go. So ultimately, various meetings with the county, the TCC committee, and so forth, they've allowed kind of a reevaluation of this. So they've brought back the 3 different alignments for those communities to review and ultimately select whether they wanted to keep the middle alignment or select a new alignment. At the previous village board meeting, we had a workshop, and the consensus after the discussion was Gouger Road was the preferred alignment for the village of Homer Glen. So the resolution that you have before you basically is just a resolution supporting that. The village of Homer Glen is now supporting Gouger Road as the preferred alignment. And again, this takes the traffic ultimately to the intersection of 159th and Cedar Road. Well,
Wow, that's
yeah.
right.
The
The terminus is going to.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So.
I thought we did this in the last meeting.
We did. Last
It was like a workshop.
meeting was just a
Oh,
workshop.
just a workshop. Oh.
So no more discussion?
No.
Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Caprio?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Nancy Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve the February 2019 Mahoney Silverman and Cross LLC legal bills in the amount of $14,666?
I so move.
Trustee Suisse,
Second.
Durian, discussion?
Well, I know we've looked at these at A&F, and we're at the average is 9,000 a month, and we've, over the past 3 months, have exceeded that. And obviously, some of it due to try to take Beth and Mike off the board for 6,800. And then I think it's important for the residents to know that a lot of these fees were the interview process for the new village manager. That, you know, we pretty much put it on the attorneys to kind of process that whole, go through that whole process for us and read out interviews and things like that. So that accounts for this large number in, you know, December or January and February. I just think it's important for people to know that because it is so far off budget.
And we don't have March yet.
No.
And I'm actually, I won't be a future youth deciding these things, but I asked to pull this as well, just because I think it's important, even though we see it at A&F, I think it's important for the legal bills at least to be something that we can all talk about during it as a consent item every time we go through the motions. So we had said that once before.
Well, I know, and I think, and it may have gotten lost in the process, we, I believe, agreed as a board that the staff had to go through the village manager as a point person before going and contacting the village manager so that we could help, or the village attorney, so that we could help to reduce some of those costs. And I just want to make sure that that still is the process, that the staff goes to the village manager, who then in turn dictates the communication to the attorney.
Okay. Any other discussion? So it goes through you. All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Nancy
Aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Cap?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, is there a motion to approve an agreement with the USIC to perform utility locating services for the Village of Homer Glen as part of the joint utility locating information for excavators, which would be the Julie program?
Some of,
Trustee Rogers,
Second.
Trustee, discussion. None? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Capra?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Rogers?
aye.
Trustee Barry?
Aye.
Trustee Nancy
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Workshop items. Administrative Analyst Matt Walsh. Request for private access to Heritage Park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This first workshop item is kind of related to general discussion we've had over the past couple months at Parks and Rec and at the village board level of providing access to Heritage Park, particularly on the north and west sides of the park to those residents of Woodbine West and northwest corner of town. So the first, staff is kind of seeking guidance on what the board feels about providing access points at the right of way that we have at the north and northwest and north side of the park, as well as it was suggested at past at a Parks and Rec meeting that in lieu of those, if there wasn't a consensus to move forward with those public access points, that residents could potentially place gates or kind of ways to get through to the park on their own private property, just so their family could access that park instead of trying to make the way through the access that we have on the south side of the park now. So really the general questions that the staff is seeking guidance on are whether there's any direction to go forward with pursuing those public access points, or how to view those potential requests for private access from private property into Heritage Park.
I believe when we discussed this in one of the meetings, we kind of bounced it back to staff to find out the responsibilities. Let's just say that one of the residents want to have a private fence to the park. What if other residents start using it? Or what if other people start using it as a gangway or an entrance part to the, does it become our responsibility now? Or and who's responsible to maintain the gate? And who's responsible to maintain the fence? Those were questions that we, I believe, as a board kind of bounced back to the staff to find out the answers for. And I haven't heard anything since.
Now our village attorney and myself, we had this conversation as well recently to talk about if the board wanted to allow this, what would be the recommended parameters for that? Based on some conversation with some of the other trustees too, I think that it's coming down to if the board wants to adopt this as a policy to allow it. Obviously, the fence is owned by the village, and so we would want to ensure that any gate access by a private resident via their backyard would have to, they would have to pay for those expenses for the gate. They'd have to be constructed, and we would have to select the contractor to do that work and make sure it's done so that the gate maintains its stability, and as well as ensuring that if there's an opportunity where we may have to lock the gate, is there a provision where we have to get locks to lock it so we don't have access 24/7 depending on what events may be occurring there, like for example the fireworks or things like that. But we want to make sure that if the board does set the policy that, you know, there is a permit they're going to have to come in and they're going to have to fill out. We're going to want them to sign acknowledging what the rules and the regulations are. We want to make sure that we have our contractor designing what these gates will be, and that they're consistently being applied, and so that we also have, not just the security and stability of the gate, but also making sure that the aesthetics of it all looks consistent as well. And then there was another conversation that we recently had, if there, and I don't know if that's the case, I think there's 38 total homes that is.
It's 36.
36 total homes that could have the possibility of providing, having that private gate entrance. And we can't be the ones to regulate who's going to go in and out of that. They need to recognize that they want to have that gate and the public from Heritage Park goes into their backyard or traverses their private property to go back and forth. That will be on them. That will be a private matter. It won't be the village to enforce those things.
Couldn't we have them supply the lock seeds in their backyard?
Well,
They would maintain it rather than us maintain it?
I had suggested that the cost of the lock be part of the permit fee, and you have one key, so that when the fireworks go off, or when we have to close that, facilities has, let's say 12 people decide to do this, they have 12 locks that have the one key, and they stick it on there, and they lock it.
I agree with that, because if we leave it to the residents, and not that we don't trust you guys, but, they could easily open it and close it, people in or out, it'd have to be us.
So part of that fee would be
Wait, so
a lock.
I'm lost here. You're saying that you want to have our people put the locks on the fence that is bordering their property?
The resident provides, the resident pays for it, but we provide a lock. I'm not even okay with the fence, but I'm just saying.
For the fence, because we need to, for the fireworks, it needs to be closed.
Okay, but here's the problem. If you're locking the fence, you're locking the fence on the outside, not the inside. So now you've locked them out of even being able to use the fence.
It's just for the.
Correct, that's what we want to do, we want to prevent them.
All right, so you're talking just a night?
Or,
whatever,
well,
like, we have an event.
to what Village Manager Franklin said, I echo all of that. My bullet points were by requisition of the village only, resident pays the full fee, the village contractor is hired to install it. I don't think this is something that we should do, internally with staff. It should be a fence company. All the bolstering, reinforcements, the gate hardware and everything would be by us, so it looks uniform, it looks nice. Village approved lock that for uniformity and professionalism, and the resident agrees that the gate fence is still the property of the village, and from time to time, with advance notice, access will be controlled or denied. Because we want to control or deny it based on if we're doing fireworks, we absolutely have to keep people out of that fall zone.
Okay.
So like Trustee Tracey said, that's on us to put that on there and say, we did our due diligence to make sure this is locked up.
Well,
That's something easily jump the fence and not.
But here's my only concern. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. We're going to buy a lock and lock it from the outside of the fence, and how are we supposed to get it out? And let's say it's not 4th of July, or it is 4th of July.
Is it
They have a
when
lot of
we
people
have a
over at their
lock?
house.
No, we're only gonna lock them when we need to lock them up for like the fire.
It would be open all the other time until we decide as a board that, hey, we're having Homerfest, we need to put out to those homeowners that have that gate that we're locking this from X date to Z date, and, and instruct facilities management to go out and lock those gates on those dates and unlock them on that ending date.
And then the rest of the year, they can put their own locks on the inside, because here's the other thing.
Yeah.
You get some people that are outside the park and they want to get out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not climbing the fence anymore, so I'm going to look for that gate that's open.
Yeah.
Right, I guess to your point, Mayor, it would have to be that the hole in order to put the lock through should be big enough to put 2 locks through, because we wouldn't want to facilities management to walk up at a time when we want to lock off that fence and say, oh, the homeowner's already taken care of that. We want to supersede their lock, on top of it.
This is going to be confusing.
I don't-
Talking about that.
Well, and
I think
that's
it's a
why
great
we
idea,
need
honestly.
policy direction from you. We don't have any of the details worked out because we wanted to know. We had various feedback from the trustees. Some wanted it, some didn't want it, some wanted options. So we wanted to know before we can always come back to you and say, listen, if the village board policy is to allow private access via our fences owned by the village, then these would be the parameters that staff would put and bring it back to you and say these are the conditions that they would have to agree to.
This is individual homeowners, not a full access for the community, like.
Right, the full access is a separate issue, but we still think full access is important.
Right.
Because it connects neighborhoods
Yeah,
to
but we're
our
talking
core
specific
park,
places.
and that's important too.
Okay, and then the full access, we haven't picked a place to put anything there, correct?
No, we haven't, that's why we're here tonight.
Well, the reason why we have not is because the residents in Saddlebrook and the residents in Woodbine, we haven't had a consensus of which way it goes. Some residents say in Woodbine they would same way. I mean, my parents live right there, and my mom says no, and my dad says yes. I mean, it's like split 50-50 for both subdivisions, so I think we gotta get a consensus.
I think, right, that's a heavier lift to do the full access, the community access points. But to Trustee Suisse's point, I think this is a great idea for the individual homeowners for many reasons. One is that it increases their property value. I mean, just imagine you have a park, a house, that's such a 100-acre beautiful park, and now you have full access, you know, basically anytime you want. It also helps us get more people out of their cars. Right now, I live in Woodbine right next door. I don't have an adjoining property. I live on the other side of Woodbine. But even these homeowners right here, or Woodbine West, or Trustee Turkey's, you can get your car and drive all the way around, basically, to come here. And it's like, that kind of takes away that you know, that access.
So for me, the full access to me is the easy one, right? There's a greater good in access to this park, in putting full access, and where that is, certainly I'm open to that discussion. But having full access from the north portion of this park, to me, that's something we've needed the entire time we've been on this project.
You mean on Cushman?
It has to happen on the north side, it's just a matter of where.
Correct, correct. So there needs to be access on the north side, in my opinion.
Sure.
The private access, I'm open to, let's investigate that further and let's look at what those parameters would be. My concern would be, you're taking what right now would be, as it currently sits, 2 real access points to this development, or to this park.
Yeah.
Looks like it. And you're now adding the potential of 40 access points to this park, right? As opposed to, and this is why they're combined for me, as opposed to looking at full access from the back. I don't subscribe to these residential roads are going to turn into parking lots. Anybody that drives through this ring road knows there is a ton of parking. So what I think it's more likely, and I think about it from like my family's perspective, if we get on a bike, I can get on our trail system, which I think is one of the best things this town has going. I can get to essentially Culver Park and then into the neighborhood. From there, having access to get to Heritage Park, even from where I live, by bike, would be fantastic. So I think there's a greater good on the full access, and I think there's the potential that if done right, it does solve, in my world, some of the private access, and takes care of, as I said, my concern, which would be adding 40 access points to the park instead of right now 2 and maybe 3 or 4. And when we talk about the events and when we talk about the times that we need to restrict access, we've got 2 points in the, if it's fireworks, we've got 2 points in the rear to maintain, as opposed to the potential of what could be 40.
I agree, because when this first came out, I was 100% against it because I I understood what the ring road was, but the parking lot issue and thinking of all the sports games and all the people that complain now because they use their front of their houses to park for the baseball games and so forth. But now that you see that ring road and all the extra parking, you're right, there's not going to be many people that park at these 2 access points. At least I would hope that.
I look at it like this, it would be cumbersome. Again, take out the adjacent subdivisions. You may have someone that lives in Woodbine West come and park on that road because it's convenient. But anybody from outside of there, if I'm coming by car, I'm coming to the main entrance and I'm parking near the amenity that I want to use. When I talk about flags, it's if I come any other way. If I want to run and want to run the trail system and then get access to this park and the exercise equipment that we're not going to have out here, or by bike, that's where I think you're going to, the bigger use of the northern access is going to be, not necessarily cars. And if we didn't have this ring road, if we had this facility with like a parking lot, there is so much parking here. I don't think that's going to be.
I would agree to that if we could make a decision on this north. I mean, this park is going to be open in 60 days. People are going to be able to play volleyball in 60 days, right? So,
but we still haven't heard back from the residents that we said we were going to go ask and we never did.
But the residents, and I understand we need to hear their feedback, we have to look at the whole village though.
I understand that, but.
So what
that the park is open.
You're talking about the homeowners that.
Right, the gates, so those people that are like clawing to get in can get access to it, and then you can, then after the first year, we go, okay, we're not doing it anymore, we can kind of get a temperature of whether there might be, there might be a lot less people than we think that are gonna want to skate, especially you walk that thing, you're in the north, and you want to go to the exercise equipment,
Yeah.
I'm driving, because by the time I get over here, I do not want to do that challenge course.
Well, wouldn't it be wouldn't it be simpler to just go to the 3 subdivisions that surround it and just say, hey, this is what we're looking at?
That's not gonna happen in, 30, 60, 90 days.
Well, wait.
And knock on the doors.
You said already that they never did ask everyone in your subdivision.
We have
How
6.
hard would it be to send out a mailer to the
Well, would it be
homeowners?
on them or would it be on us?
Yeah, so here's my thing. You're going to give us, Woodbine West Estates Homeowners Association, the yay or nay on that? Is that, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
And then we've never gone to a full vote of the 107 homes. We have 6 board members and I.
We're not giving away our authority.
Right, exactly, so, yeah.
It's not the authority, you just got a petition from a gentleman that had a bunch of people sign out of Glenview.
No, but it's just a nice tool, say we want this, just like with all the people with the chickens and the bees, I mean, we were kind of like one way, and then we heard from the public, and it kind of.
And the Woodland West thing is 3 separate things. There's there's access on Dixon, there's access by each individual homeowner, and there's access to their trail system that comes through Woodbine West and hooks up to the township property, which then you can over the parking lot through the, into the hole that we right now have. So there's really 3 issues that just pertain to Woodbine West. Then there's another north issue where, it's either Dixon or it's Coachman's, which is in,
Saddlebrook, but isn't that a floodplain anyways?
Right, I'm just saying that, these northern access points, there's 2 there. One of them is part of the 3 that touch Woodbine West. 2 of them are basically up on the north side, one being in Saddlebrook, and one is on Dixon Lane, which is, just kind of a strip of houses. And then the other issue is Woodbine, where we have that. Now, to Brian's point, when he says, if you wanted to ride his bike, you can get over to Culver Park and everything, soon you'll be able to, overroute those streets through Pebble Creek, through Woodbine, come along the path that we're going to put in on 151st. So we're solving that portion of that at that point. That's why I said, I think, to me, the northern access, while I agree, it has to happen, something has to happen there. We have to keep opening up access to this park. It's just, I think that's going to be a happier life.
So I think that's step one, and I guess my suggestion would be, this is, if there's consensus to explore northern access, let's throw it to staff and the professionals, instead of us sitting here saying, hey, this may work, that may work. Come up with a plan of what makes sense as access points, and then put that public, and maybe have a committee of the whole in which residents of surrounding are invited to come and attend and offer their feedback. But to go to homeowners associations and say, put it up for a vote, sets it up, in my opinion, for.
No, we've discussed this, I can tell you, we've discussed this multiple times, and we said, we'd like to hear, it's not that they're the decision maker, it's just we want to hear from those 3
And I'm saying let's provide them that opportunity. But let's have a plan of what it would be
And we were
as
supposed
opposed
to have
to.
done this many times, I mean, we've talked about this so many times at our parks meeting and here, I mean, this is probably the 5th or 6th time that it's come up here. About these access points.
We had a workshop on it.
We did.
And you were gonna meet with the township for over here.
We talked about cross-access with the township, we
Yeah.
talked about the front fence.
Highway department's got that set.
But I've never been part of an in-depth where we've gotten anything passed, and I may have missed the meeting.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
I'm sure they haven't. But northern access, but instead of opening up for feedback on the potential, I'd like to have a plan that makes sense from a professional standpoint to say, this is the best place for access, and then take that and have a meeting based on that and feedback based on a plan, not feedback based on, do we want access anywhere on the northern part of the park?
No, is this either or are you looking for both?
I would leave that to the professionals to suggest to us. Now, I'm not qualified, I don't think, to sit here and say, I think this makes more sense. I'm saying some sort of northern access seems to make sense to me.
Both, I mean, but you're right, I think we should have professionals tell us which access works better, or if both of them work, because I know one's a floodplain. But if the engineer comes back and says, well, they both work, I'd still like to have the
he can take the trail system here, where they start taking the car, now they got to just walk through the fence, so they're not pulling the car in from Block Lake, they can walk through. I just want to make sure that they have the opportunity to open and close their fence. If you're talking about 4th of July, where the fireworks in it, that's
Yeah,
hazardous.
I have no problem with the gates, actually, Carrie, I talked to Carrie about it. You know, I think it adds huge value to the homeowners. I think it kind of facilitates neighbors, because like if my neighbor has a gate, I would put a gate in too. I'm just gonna say, hey neighbor, let's share a gate. Kind of brings community a little bit more together, gets more people into that park. And exactly like she said, it would be our contractor that does it, because I would want continuity, so all of the gates look the same, all the locks look the same, you know, put the chain with the lock on so that we don't walk up to a gate and it's got a lock on it already, and we don't have security to it, so put a chain with a lock on it for what I think is probably going to be maybe 1 day out of the year, maybe 2. You know, if we end up doing sledding races or something like that, we might want to keep people off of there. But I'm totally open to it. If I had a house like that, and I've been looking at this construction and waiting for, you know, the years and years, and when you go out there, this park is just, it's phenomenal.
Some people
it's
make their own fence, their own access.
Yeah, and so that's the other thing. Then if we don't allow it, guess what? You know, then we're gonna fix the fences a lot. I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
Well, if we own it, we still could be fixing fences a lot in there then.
No, but what I'm saying is if we let them put a gate in, I mean, the gates aren't that expensive.
No, I
Then
agree with
we'll
what
just
Carrie
put a
said.
fence.
May I ask a question?
I have a question for the attorney.
When you're talking about closing off access to the park, and I understand the concern with the fireworks, but in the past when we've done that, it's because we've closed the entire park for the staging of the fireworks display. But now that the fest is here, and the equipment will be out there every day, and people will be out there every day, we won't really be closing the park.
We're going to close off the whole active core and north, from east to west, full east, full west,
Right, so.
from the active core, or from the road north.
So couldn't.
So, and that's where primarily all the houses are abutting the property.
Right, so couldn't we just run that orange safety fencing to dictate where we want people to?
We're going to do that on the south side and you know, from east to west, but along people's houses. I mean, that's tantamount to saying, please don't come through. And we can't do that for a fireworks fall zone. That's just, I mean, the fire department's not going to allow us to shoot those up.
But isn't that what you're talking about?
We're talking about doing it for the active core. We're going to be that whole area we're talking about shutting down for the entire.
And the highway department has it already all set up, so they're not going to be able to get in.
We're talking about having that whole thing closed off for the week, but really going to town on securing it on fireworks night so nobody comes into that fall zone.
I have a question for our attorney, because staff brought up concerns about this idea. The village could be liable if injuries, it says in the supplement sheet here, the village could be liable if injuries or damage occur that are related to the private access gates, which could include dogs, pets, children, visitors. What do you have?
Well, if they have dogs, we can say we don't want
I'm addressing.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, but I'm saying, if the dogs get out and bite somebody on park property, what happens? You know, who's liable for all this?
If anybody walks their dog and they get out here, we're gonna have that issue.
And where I live in Woodbine, I live right across the street from Center Park.
Start with the attorney.
Well, I'd like to give Eric some feedback on that. Where I live in Woodbine, I live across the street from Center Park. So the front of my house is up to Center, or is across the street from Center. But there are houses in Pebble Creek that back up to Center Park, and many of them have fences with gates, gate access right into Center Park. And they do that all the time. They come out with their dogs and their kids and they walk. And I think that's fairly common for most of the township parks that are in these neighborhoods, that the township parks, there is access. Now, whether or not that's allowed by the township or if it's just something that, you know, organically happened over time, I couldn't answer to that. But there, I can tell you, I can look right on my front door and I can see.
It's their personal fence, right?
Correct.
Yeah. It's
But I can see 20 fences.
But I would rather have it to where everything looks the same.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking Central Park.
No, and again, I'm just saying that like I said, you know, these people don't want their gates, or leave their gate open. So now they just want to do.
I guess the first question is what kind of injuries and what kind of damages? Because I mean, unless you want to do that. But in terms of, I guess the concern is if somebody comes onto your property, they're in the park and they come onto your property, you might want to keep it locked. I mean, it's no different than if you had there's a fence there right now. There probably wouldn't be a fence if this wasn't a golf course. If you guys were developing this park, you probably wouldn't be building a fence around it. Most of the time, most parks that you see that are like this they're wide open. It would be incumbent upon a homeowner to put the fence up. And quite frankly, I don't see a lot of liability issues other than maintaining that fence. So the issues come up if it isn't maintained and somebody's injured as a result of maybe hurting themselves on the fence. Or the situation comes up where village staff goes around and they put all the locks on the fences to keep people off the fireworks, and they don't do a good job, or they forget to lock them. That might be an issue, because now if somebody had access, now they get out there and get burned by fireworks or something. That's one possibility. But generally, there isn't going to be a lot of liability, because the other thing to keep in mind is the village has tort immunity, which means that unless the village acts with gross negligence or willful and wanton conduct, you're not liable for just pure negligence. It's something that you guys have a protection from liability.
Thank you.
I hope I answered that.
Yes, thank you. Carlo, we made this meeting extra long because we knew it was your last one.
Okay, so are there any more questions on that? Okay, let's go to the second one.
So wait.
I guess just to wrap up.
So what do you want us to? So I think we're in agreement with the gate, and then I think we're wanting a workshop put together for north access so that we can get together with residents and.
We want to hire somebody to look at the two accesses, right?
Who is that, an engineer, maybe? Who are the professionals, I guess? Park planner?
Yeah, we'll find someone, it could be an engineer, it could be an architect, or a landscape architect too, either one, but we can staff can figure that one out.
And on the gates, again, I'm open to the discussion of the gates. When you build something like this, you want, I think, as many different ways for people to use this facility as possible. So I'm open to the gates. I'm saying, as we explore it, some of the issues that you just mentioned are the things I think we have to keep in mind.
I think what would help maybe security and staff put together kind of a policy. Now that we know that gates are something that you guys are willing to explore, what are the rules on that? Obviously, one of the other issues that comes up was pools. It's obviously how to address that. Pool. So,
Yeah.
To what Beth said about, that exploring and getting more feedback on the north access, I think it's north and the west access. Because right now, we have just a chop hole in the fence, which is not really the best way to cap off our beautiful park. So we need to address both of those.
I think if we leave it as a general community access.
Yeah, community access.
And let the professionals decide what makes the most sense.
Yeah, and you can tie it off to dress it up. You can actually put gate enclosures on it if you wanted to do it. Library asked me today if we could put one closer to their front of their library so that people can get in and out too. So.
Did we say anything just quickly about the other side of Woodbine and their fences and access there, or are we just considering Woodbine?
Well, this would be any homeowner.
No, any homeowner on this side.
Both sides.
Well, it's in
Saddlebrook
too, aren't there? There's
Saddlebrook, well, only two on Saddlebrook.
There's 5 or 6. They're big lots there.
Then there's that big old.
I can get right. I don't know if it's.
There's 36 total homes that back up. 36 total homes.
36 on both sides? Oh, I
All the way around.
That's northwest end.
there's three lots in Saddlebrook, 2 homes.
So I guess the only thing that I'd like to see is for us to have some kind of a plan before that park opens. So like gives us May to figure this out, because we've been going, like we said, back and forth with this for many months.
You're talking about the north.
The north, the west, and the gate. What are we doing with the gates? What are we doing with the north?
Okay, we're done discussing this now. We just have to find out how we're going to do it and get together with neighbors and.
Thank you.
All right, so Matt is going to go into the.
Yes, so 2 more items. So another item that the Parks and Recreation Committee has been discussing for the last couple of months has been parks aside from Heritage Park. The committee's kind of revisited the 2013 Parks Plan, at least in the terms of needs assessment for neighborhood parks throughout the village. So I just have a brief kind of background on how we've taken this process and some of the proposals or recommendations that the committee wanted to bring forward to the board to get feedback or just kind of direction from the board on where to move forward, things to look at, and potential sites to consider. So the 2013 Park Plan kind of establishes standards for developing parks, and one of the main things that it wants to see are an increase in neighborhood and community parks. Community parks are often bigger, mostly the destination for vehicle travel, and Heritage Park was a huge step in addressing that need in the community. But as far as neighborhood parks, those are viewed more as smaller parks that serve a population that's within walking distance, which is usually viewed as a half-mile or a 10-minute walk. That's kind of the national standard to try and make every citizen or resident in Homer Glen to be within 10-minute walk of a neighborhood park, which can combine kind of active play equipment like playground and also passive equipment like walking paths or just kind of open fields for general play. And the 2013 plan also recommended, at the map that you might be able to see there, it's also attachment 1 in your packet, lists locations that have a park need or that should see a park. So the committee revisited those 8 locations. Some of those have been addressed. Gooding Squirrel Park we just opened a few years ago, or last year. And so we took those 8 locations and updated some of the information, such as homes that are in that area, in that neighborhood or subdivision, and also distance to neighborhood parks, whether it be township park or school park or village park. And the committee looked at that data. Well, these are the 8 locations kind of mapped out. Some of them are more general because that's how the 2013 plan kind of looked at them, and they're not specific subdivisions like northwest of 151st and Cream or northwest of 143rd and King Road, for example. So the committee kind of looked at each of these 8 locations, kind of looked at the objective data about how many homes and distance to nearby parks, and then also considered other factors like availability of space and connection to trails and village ownership of land. So after kind of considering all of those factors, the committee discussed making a list of the top 3 locations to kind of propose for future park development. The top 3 being Glenview Walk Estates. We heard from a resident tonight that has come to many of our meetings kind of expressing the need for that in the community. The village owns a lot, which I'll show you in a moment, so that kind of raised that this priority up the other locations that may have had more homes or were further from parks. The fact that this subdivision is kind of by itself and has a barrier that at 159th Street from those nearby parks is not really feasibly walkable for family or residents to go to. Glenview West is an area that also is kind of on its own park-wise, and we also own a small lot, the village owns a small lot there, potentially developed, and the committee also considered the area of Country Woods, a Twin Lakes subdivision, because they also are far away from a park, and it's also kind of a dense subdivision that was developed prior to the village, so we didn't have the opportunity to kind of mandate that park was placed in there. So one of the concerns that the committee had was that some of the village-owned lots are smaller, so it won't meet the kind of recommended 3 to 10 acre area for a neighborhood park, but there's not a lot of places that we'd be able to do 3 to 10 acre park because a lot of the village is already developed, at least in the areas that need a park. So just for reference, here we just kind of took an example. This is an aerial view of the Glenview Walk Estates lot. And although this would be the smallest park if it were to be developed in the village, there's still potential that it could have a playground space that's comparable to to every other park in the village. And on the left side of the slide here, kind of lists the square foot of the playground footprint. That includes slides, and 2 to 5-year-old play apparatus, and 5 to 12. And then just kind of an example, just kind of, I took 2 example bites out of the Glen Walk Estates to show what those would look like in that village-owned lot.
Any questions?
No, I just want to say that the Parks Committee had literally beaten this to death over and over, and we have come up with this prioritization plan based off of many factors, and we took many hours and discussed how we wanted to play this out. Matt, thank you for putting this all together. We really appreciate it. And we're not saying that we are looking to build 3 more parks right off the bat. We're just looking future down the line. There are residents here from Glenview that would like to get the ball moving, or rolling, or whatever. I'm so tired, I can't think of the state anymore. The ball rolling on this park for them. And we thought this was the #1 park due to the fact that we own the lots. I know, did we ever look into the pricing? Matt, is that what
In the supplement sheet, I just looked at the price of some of the playground equipment and pavilion costs at Goodings Grove Park, which is the most recent neighborhood park that we did, and the cost of the playground material, I think, was about $125,000, and the cost of the pavilion was a little over $40,000. That's just kind of general cost. We certainly can look into more accurate cost for that. That was just kind of general, because the playground size is about the same. There's potential cost.
$500,000 park though, with engineering, with all the other.
Yes, a lot of landscaping or cost of that park is much larger. This case,
I know several of us have said that after doing active core and working with actual park planners, we need to make sure that we don't do Goodings Grove again the way we did Goodings Grove, that we actually bring in people who are professionals in the park planning. So, I mean, obviously, those numbers are only going to continue to go north. While they look certainly achievable right, on first blush today, I mean, let's not be fooled. We want to make sure that any park, whether it's small or big, is going to be something we're all proud of and can all stand behind it. And I think that active core here is just taking us up to a new level where now we can look back on some of the things that have been done before and say, let's not do that again. Let's make sure we really holistically look at these things.
There's other things to look at too. There's a retention pond right behind here where it's a.
Can you put on attachment 6?
It's a pretty deep slope where we want to put up a new fence, or put up a fence there to stop.
Right, and with attachment 6 up there, what that said to me, I was looking at that on our supplement sheet, is that what is to the, I believe that's to the east. I mean, there's a big,
red line?
No, the piece of property
That's
that I'm looking at going, that's probably a future subdivision. And you know what?
Right here?
Yes.
That's that.
It's a nursery.
Apple orchard.
Yeah, it's like an apple orchard on the United
Oh, is
Street.
it the, you pick it?
Yeah,
Okay.
you pick it, yeah.
So, we talked, one of the things that they said was, well, at the minimum, buy get a cost on that vacant land, and get that vacant land so that you have a bigger footprint to build on, so you don't have like, a 0.88 acre lot right now, which, I mean,
very similar with the red. Kingston,
The red
yeah,
is-
Kingston Hills is about 1.25 acres. And so the village owned lot is about 0.9 acres. The adjacent lot, the red, is about 1/2 acre.
So it would be similar to Kingston then?
Yeah, Kingston doesn't have parking, it's a neighborhood park.
And I'm not saying that I'm against that, I'm just filling in the blanks here.
Yeah.
I think doing it without that red and just the .88, would be a mistake. We're gonna end up with another park that I think that we're not
Yeah, you just don't have to
set,
put something up.
right.
Are all those lots in there owned by, that's owned by others, isn't it?
No, this one is owned
He
by
does not own all lots.
Root,
Glen?
GR.
He does not own lots. He's only got 3 left.
Yeah.
GROT, Gordon.
Did we ever look at what the cost of that was?
It's not on the MLS.
Right, but did we call?
Yeah.
How do you get on the call?
That lot is owned by Gord.
I'm sorry?
That lot is owned by Gord. He's got his little construction shed.
Like his house,
Oh,
or his
yeah.
office. Like if you,
And if I could just make a point, the neighbor next to lot is Blacker, so we wanted this.
And I'm building a house right now across the street from it. So you've got 2 of the closest neighbors to that red property sitting in this room.
We have no problem whatsoever with that park being built next to our property. In fact, when we built five years ago now, that was one of the things that brought us there, was that we had heard that there was going to be a park built in that subdivision in a short time. Obviously, that was before the plans for Heritage Park.
Did you hear that from the
came
builder?
up.
Did you hear that from the builder?
No, we didn't, that wasn't from the builder. We actually had talked to
Some of the neighbors?
yeah, some of the neighbors and the people around the area, that was on the list. They didn't give a timeline or anything like that, but it was on the list. And so, from our point of view, having a park there, obviously, with 159 being doubled in size, it makes it much more difficult with young kids. My kids are 4, 7, and 9. So a park in that area definitely makes it safer for them. And like Marty said, brings value and people wanting to build in that community as well.
What, on the chart on page 3, the Goodings Grove Park, with the playground footprint at 4,700 square feet, is that just the playground?
Yeah.
Just the playground, not the basketball court?
That's just what we did is we just took where the actual playgrounds were, so we could show that that was just just the playground area, and that's it, not tennis courts or basketball courts or open fields or anything else.
Because when I look at Goodings Grove, to me, and this isn't to belabor the point of Goodings Grove, but you look at it and you see 3.5 acres total, right? But once you get off the playground and off the basketball court, it is undulating, downhill sloping that, I don't know, maybe you can run a kite or something uphill, but you're not going to do a pickup game of baseball or, so on paper, it's a 3.5 acre park, but there's things that I think of you going to the park and using the park for, it's somewhat unusable for any of the things I would typically do at the park. But when you added that basketball court and the playground and the pavilion, this would be a similar size footprint. And Kingston Hills, which my family spent a lot of time at, especially when my kids were younger, and that's the one thing that I think in general we struggle with, is we have lots of playgrounds, and that's what this would, Kingston Hills is a playground with a pavilion. There isn't a whole lot of other space to do some of the other things, but this is the hand we're dealt. And let's make the best use of the hand we're dealt. And I agree to build a park on that one village-owned parcel without exploring that other side. The other point I would make from a funding standpoint is certainly OSLAD is out there, but, and this is important, and I know Mayor, you spent some time this morning with our legislators, but we are going to be meeting with them to talk about other topics. This is one that I'd say let's make sure we're putting our heads together with some plans here, because there is going to be a capital plan coming from the state. And capital plans come along from the state every decade or so. And we've got 2 I talk about our two main ones. We certainly have Representative McDermott, but Jim Durkin, who's a leader in the House, and Senator Curran are two people that are going to be instrumental in how that capital plan is divvied up. And let's be on the forefront of getting our requests in, because I think that's coming in the next month and a half. And this is something, if we have a plan on these sorts of things, these are things we should sit with them over the next couple of weeks and make sure are put in with specific type things that it's about every decade, and it's coming here in the next 6 weeks.
I mean, you guys can hold us by pointing us in the direction of getting a phone number, somebody, somewhere we can get, this information on whether or not that developer would be interested in selling that. I mean, you guys are out there, you see them. I've driven past there 3 times since that not this past party one, but I never see anybody in that little office to talk to.
We could definitely meet with them in the next 48 hours.
I mean, that's the starting point. They may come and start licking their chops. Some of the village ones that we're gonna quadruple our price, because we've seen that, because, we have a money tree in the back.
Yeah, I believe we do have that contact information, but we didn't want to, for the reasons you just mentioned, we didn't want to go ahead and reach out to staff to do that before.
Well, Marty will be at the next meeting. He'll have a
Because he's going to join the Parks Committee.
So do you have to go forward, ma'am?
So I think
Well, you guys haven't seen the other parks.
Oh, this vote isn't over yet.
this was the main one that the committee's been discussing, but Mediview West, this is the village-owned lot at Mediview West, and it kind of came down to those top two for deciding on what should be our primary goal. And the fact this lot is not in an ideal location. It's kind of up against the stub street and backs up against homes very close by.
That's the water station right there on the corner. See that there? That's a water pumping station, for lack of a better word, on that property.
We need to work on getting better lots.
Yeah, certainly the needs there for this lot is not great.
What's this now?
The problem I had with this lot was, if I'm that homeowner, I'm putting a for sale sign up as soon as you guys say you're doing this,
Want to
because
put a developer in there, too?
everybody and their brother's gonna be doing a UE in my house. And again, it's long, it backs up to people's backyards, which I get it, when you buy a property, you have to, you all know where I live, I'm not delusional in thinking that nobody's gonna build there. But, I don't think that this is ideal to drive into a dead-end street, and,
That's what made it number 2. The access is.
And what's to the west? Farm?
And then the third area we discussed was Country Woods and Twin Lakes area. So those are just two township-owned parks. We kind of already discussed that the hang isn't dealt well for these types of scenarios. So sometimes we need to get creative with trail connections or partnering with other organizations, which helped alleviate some of the need at Old Oak and Chickasaw with the Goodings Grove Park IGA that went into effect last year for a great playground at the school. Because Old Oak doesn't have any space for us to develop. So we discussed Country Woods and Twin Lakes subdivisions also have a strong need, and there is some township land. Lamers Park doesn't have any active equipment, so we had discussed as a committee to potentially talk to the township about partnering for that in the future, just because we feel like that might be a good solution to a need in that area.
see, I love the idea of Lamers Park, of trying to do something with the township there. You don't have to clear trees, because there's really not a lot of trees on there. You have that pond that's already there, you have parking that's already there. You have so many more homes that it would service, but it's doing something with the.
I did meet with Pam Myers, and she did say she was willing to entertain an intergovernmental agreement. She'd like to open the door for discussions about what to do with that park, and obviously she'd like to have meetings and before we even get there.
You got something looped in bright blue, what is that?
Oh, that is Country Woods Park. It's also a township-owned lot. It's very densely packed through there.
I know, Lamers.
Yeah, park might be a loose term on it, but
It's actually just that wooded area by Country Woods, right?
yes.
So it's just a piece of property that's not really.
Yeah, next to homes on either side of it, it's just
And
dense.
you talked to the supervisor about doing something at Lamers or at both, or just? at
Either
Lamers?
one, she was more or less like willing to start working with the village on parks, and it was actually very exciting.
How big is that Country Woods Park?
2 acres, I believe.
Where's the access? Based on
Towards Country Woods Park.
based on the workshop.
It's hard to see, but there's a street that kind of, it's Alpine Drive, technically. So it's, it goes along Cedar Trail, turns in Alpine Drive for that turn.
Okay, so that's wooded though.
Oh, yeah, it's all wood.
It's all woods. And that's where it should be.
I couldn't agree more, and so we'll stop everything we can with Lamers. See, this is negotiation.
Yeah.
This is how we negotiate, Sharon.
Okay, and your last one.
That's it.
Special
Are we
events.
done?
No, I'm sorry, as far as, no, that's, we only have 3 parts.
All right, well, for Matt, discuss information regarding social events and rental policies of village parks.
So yes, the village has received requests for private parties to happen to use village space or village pavilions at village parks. And we don't necessarily have a policy or any practices in place to allow that at this time. And we wanted to get direction from staff on whether we should begin creating a policy. This did come up at A&F a few months ago, where we were discussing kind of limitations of staff to address these things that many other park districts and villages do allow. But at this time, when we're still deciding where parks should go and how to program this park space, basically the consensus of the A&F committee was to wait on that for now, but we just wanted to at least bring it up to the board as a whole without kind of just leaving it to a committee, just to see if there was any feedback on whether the village should.
I agree with their consensus on leaving it for right now, and that goes, that also goes along with, we have some positions that we're looking to fill right now, and one of those is gonna be kind of part and parcel with parks, recreation, programming. I know we haven't finalized on a title probably for that and what that all entails, but certainly that person, whoever that person might be, is really gonna be in their wheelhouse, because they're the ones who, in my vision, are gonna have that kind of overarching look at all the community events that we're gonna be doing and whether or not we should be doing this. And I think they might also bring a level of best practices that they can impart to us, and help us out. Like I said, we're always groping for more professional opinions, so that I would agree with what A&F said.
That's what the consensus was for now.
Then we will
And this is like
continue
one
that
of those
direction.
things, let's go slow with this and
Well,
leave
let's get our
it
feet wet.
leave it for a year and talk about it in a year.
Let's get our feet wet. Let's have the stuff that we're looking for.
Right.
So that's this one too. Well, this way it gives us an opportunity to see actually what